Chapter 138. During these 3 months, little Bright Sparrow had already woken up. She had been staying beside Hei to protect him. However, what she didn't understand was that this black-robed Ningfan was too cold and didn't even smile at her. It was only because of little Bright Sparrow's request that Hei concocted some pills to let her know that although his face was cold, his temperament was still gentle. Cookie Brother has left. I can't bear to eat these pill cookies. Bright Sparrow felt a little suffocated in her little heart. Tears fell from her eyes as she panicked. Grandpa, why do I feel like I'm peeing in my eyes? She said anxiously. Silly girl, this isn't pee. This is tears. When you miss someone, you will cry if you miss them too much. When you miss a family, you will cry if you miss them too much. The short old man Ming Luo sighed with emotion in his eyes. Tears? What is that? What is missing, and what is home? Bright Sparrow's heart tightened when the word home flashed across her mind. Home? Home is a place that you can't help but miss even when you are far away from home. Your home should be this dark sparrow's grave. As for Grandpa's home, it's in a place far, far away, a place called the Tree World. That Ningfan's innate talent is pretty good. When he was at the harmonious spirit realm, he was able to separate an incarnation and cultivate it to the nascent soul realm. Even in the Tree World, he can be considered as a heaven's favored figure. Bright Sparrow tilted her little head and ate the pill cookies. She didn't understand the sorrow of the Ming Luo treant. However, she vaguely felt that there was something wrong with Ming Luo's words. Her home shouldn't be in the dark sparrow's grave. Recently, Bright Sparrow had been dreaming. In her dream, her name was Seedsong and she had a home that was very far away. It seemed like there was another home that wasn't too far away. Grandpa, I want to leave the dark sparrow's grave. When the 2 words Seedsong flashed across her mind, she suddenly felt a little sad. It was a feeling that she couldn't understand. What nonsense are you talking about? Not to mention that the dark sparrow's grave has a special method to prevent the demons from leaving. You can't leave at all. Even if you can leave, you should know that you are a pill devil. You are a 5th revolution pill that has gained spirit and has the chance to be cultivated into a 9th revolution or even higher pill. If you leave the dark sparrow's grave and lose Grandpa's protection, the humans in the outside world will eat you alive. Those humans aren't afraid of you like the demon race in Dark Sparrow's grave. Ming Luo's countenance changed dramatically as he reprimanded. Oh, Bright Sparrow replied softly. No one knew what she was thinking about, but there was a question in her mind. Was the human race really that scary? Biscuit Brother, isn't it great? Although that old man Xueqing was timid, he was not considered scary, right? Moreover, those living beings in the dream who knelt before him, were their pious eyes really that scary? I still want to leave Dark Sparrow's grave, she said softly in her heart, but didn't say it out loud. All of this happened after the black-robed Ningfan left the grave. At this moment, Ningfan had already merged his 2 incarnations and returned to his previous appearance. The white robe and the black cloak coexisted. The smile and the killing intent resonated, ice and fire burned in the immortal meridian, good and evil, God and devil changing in his eyes. White like a god, black like a demon, yin and yang as one. All of this secretly conformed to the supreme principle of the grand Tao of yin and yang. Thousands of miles away from Ning City, there was an ancient battlefield filled with ruins. This was the place where Jingzhua and Suqiu chased after the Black Corpse. The immortal execution sword shadow was about to dissipate, but the Black Corpse relied on various means to forcefully come back to life under the sword qi. Severe injuries. The ground was covered with black blood. However, his gaze was even more vicious. Although this serious injury had caused his corpse demon realm to fall, it had greatly improved his state of mind. Old ancestor Jingzhua was speechless after breaking the sword shadow. He was afraid that even he would die if he fell into the immortal execution sword qi. He really had no idea how Ningfan was able to display such sword qi. Moreover, his understanding of the Black Corpse's strength had improved once again. As the sword shadow was broken, Jingzhua's hair immediately stood up. The reason why he didn't leave was because he wanted to eliminate the Black Corpse after it was severely injured. If he could kill the Black Corpse, he wouldn't need to flee to another country. Yu Country and Fire Cloud Sect would be spared from the danger of destruction. He could casually give Fire Cloud Sect to Ningfan because he could see that Ningfan would treat Fire Cloud Sect well. However, deep down in his heart, he still had deep feelings for Fire Cloud Sect. Suqiu Xianzi, let's attack together and kill this devil. Jing Zhuo transmitted his voice to her. No need. He's here. Suqiu lifted her bright eyes, looked at the sky and smiled sweetly. Ningfan's figure was hundreds of li away. If Jing Zhuo didn't fully release his spirit sense, he wouldn't be able to sense Ningfan's qi. However, Suqiu sensed it. It was the special sense of a woman, followed by the sense of spirit sense. Sure enough, after the Black Corpse broke the sword shadow, he crushed the 4 illusory sword shadows in the sky with hatred. He stood in the sky without looking at Jing Zhuo and the others. Although he was severely injured, it wouldn't be too difficult for him to eliminate Jing Zhuo because he still had endless trump cards. However, his heart had been filled with hatred. It didn't matter if he could eliminate Jing Zhuo or not. At this moment, there was only one person in his heart, Ningfan, who was approaching him amidst the flickering black light. Ningfan, so you are a nascent soul cultivator. It's not surprising that you killed Tian Yitzi. The Black Corpse was so angry that he laughed. Ningfan, who came to help, was still wearing the same outfit as before. He stood in the sky and didn't talk to the Black Corpse. His eyes swept across the ground and smiled at Suqiu and Jing Zhuo. You've worked hard. I'll handle the rest of the matters. Both of you stay away. This voice was ethereal, but its power was much stronger than Jing Zhuo's. This was the true power of a nascent soul cultivator. However, the strange thing was that Ningfan's cultivation base and magical power were only at the half-step gold core realm. Jing Zhuo hesitated for a moment, but immediately left. He still remembered the divination of the old man. Ningfan could kill Jing Zhuo with ease. Previously, he believed half of it, but now he believed 90% of it. As for Suqiu, she looked at Ningfan in the sky. She raised her head and smiled brightly. The safety of Yu Country is in your hands, little guy. This Suqiu seemed to like to flaunt her seniority. However, her smile was 10,000 times more tender than an ordinary girl's. This smile was something that even a nascent soul expert of the Rain Palace couldn't get even with 1,000 gold coins. The two of them left. Only Ningfan and the Black Corpse were left on the ancient battlefield. Ningfan's eyes swept across the Black Corpse. There was fear in his eyes, but there was also a 90% chance of winning. The Black Robe's nascent soul formation only allowed his spirit sense to reach the early nascent soul realm. It didn't increase his magical power significantly, but it gave him 2 great abilities. The first was instant movement. The black light instant movement was extremely strange. It didn't consume magical power, but spirit sense. Even so, it had already reached the speed of an ordinary nascent soul cultivator. Ningfan had a conjecture that if his white robe body broke through to the nascent soul realm and mastered the secret art of instant movement, his speed would be much faster than a cultivator of the same realm as him. The second was the Black Tempest Spirit Splitting Technique. It was a divine ability that allowed the Black Robe's body to explode into tens of thousands of Black Sword Sense. This divine ability had the same principle as the Sword Sense, but its power was enough to injure an early nascent soul cultivator. Tian Yitzi was killed in just a single move. The reason why it could kill Tian Yitzi was not only because Tian Yitzi was only a gold core cultivator, but also because the magical power of an early nascent soul cultivator was stored in his body. At the same time, it also reflected the power of the Black Tempest Spirit Splitting Technique. After comprehending the Black Tempest Spirit Splitting Technique, Ningfan's sword sense had a faint trace of black, which slightly increased the power of the sword sense. The 2 divine abilities, one for escaping and one for attacking, had made Ningfan's strength take a qualitative leap. The only regret was that Ningfan's magical power was still too weak. He couldn't fight a protracted battle and had to end it quickly. This was also the reason why the Black Robe didn't hesitate to use his strongest divine ability when facing Tian Yitzi. His magical power was limited, so he had to finish it in one move. He patted his storage pouch and took out a bottle of bitter pills. He didn't care about the bitterness of the pills and directly swallowed a dozen of them. He kept the remaining 10 pills in his mouth and wasn't in a hurry to swallow them. With the yin-yang evil vein's refining speed, he could fight and recover his magical power at the same time. However, the difference in magical power between him and the black corpse would still be like heaven and earth. However, Ning Fan had 90% chance of killing this corpse devil. This was a kind of confidence. The kind of imposing manner of a nascent soul cultivator. After all, the prestige of an immortal emperor was just prestige. It lacked Ning Fan's own understanding of the realm, so it lacked momentum. Without momentum, no matter how strong the prestige was, it was just an illusion. Could a fox flaunting the tiger's might really hurt someone? Although the current prestige was only at the nascent soul realm and was far inferior to the ancient chaos immortal emperor, it truly belonged to Ning Fan. This murderous intent was obtained from Ning Fan's battles along the way. You are the descendant of the corpse devil vein and I am the descendant of the yin-yang evil vein. So you can die in peace. Ning Fan's eyes changed and his murderous intent rose to the peak. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and 9 black fire dragons engulfed the heaven and earth, covering the sky with black flames. Yin-yang evil vein? What kind of evil vein is that? Wait, this is the earth vein demonic fire, the real earth vein demonic fire. The black corpse's expression changed dramatically. He never expected that Ning Fan would have such a demonic fire. Even when he was at his peak, it was already extremely difficult for him to resist the earth vein fire. Moreover, he had lost Tian Yixi's magical power container and his corpse was severely injured. It would be extremely dangerous for him to resist the fire with his physical body. Since you have this fire, forget it. This old man admits defeat. I will leave Ning City and you country now. For the first time, the black corpse's eyes showed a hint of weakness. Currently, he was in a disadvantageous position. No matter how deep the hatred was, he had to suppress it for the time being and seek revenge in the future. But the reply to the black corpse was only Ning Fan's cold voice. Dragon Vortex Fire, First Revolution, Second Revolution, Third Revolution and Fourth Revolution. In just a moment, the black flames that covered the sky turned into a massive fire vortex and engulfed the black corpse. The power of the vortex was extremely strange. The black corpse tried to use his remaining magical power to teleport away, but to his surprise, he found that his body couldn't break free from the power of the vortex. Star Vortex could reverse attacks. Fire Vortex could lock onto teleportation. The word vortex implied the principle of a circle. The heavenly Tao was a circle and the sun was a circle. Everything that was related to a circle couldn't be underestimated. In the vortex of oblivion, the black corpse had no choice but to use his remaining magical power to resist the might of the fire forcefully. Although the Fourth Revolution Dragon Vortex Fire was powerful, it was only enough to hurt intermediate or late gold core experts. To him, it was like scratching an itch through his boots. If it wasn't for the fact that the corpse was afraid of fire, he wouldn't even try to resist the black demon flame. Although I can resist this fire, once my magical power is exhausted and I don't have a container to replenish it, I will definitely be seriously injured in the fire. It's better for me to escape today. In the midst of the flames, he patted his storage pouch. Immediately, vein opening and harmonious spirit refined corpses rushed out of the pouch and rushed straight into the sea of fire. They were immediately engulfed by the sea of fire, but the power of the fire had been worn down. Hundreds of refined corpses had been consumed. The black corpse effortlessly broke a hole in the Fourth Revolution Dragon Vortex Fire and immediately retreated. Ning Fan's eyes froze when he saw this scene from afar. I must never let this devil go today. Otherwise, given this devil's ruthless personality, he would definitely seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Fifth Revolution. His face turned slightly pale. He forcefully activated the fifth revolution of the Dragon Vortex Fire. Even though his spirit sense had broken through to early nascent soul realm, it was still extremely difficult for him to cast the fifth revolution Dragon Vortex Fire. His magical power was rapidly depleted like a clay ox entering the sea. After swallowing a dozen pills, the medicinal power turned into magical power, but it still seemed to be insufficient. Ning Fan immediately crushed 2 bitter pills in his mouth. Amidst the bitter taste, he barely had enough magical power to sustain the 5th revolution Dragon Vortex Fire. The 5th revolution of the Dragon Vortex Fire Vortex drew a trace of heaven and earth force, increasing the power of the fire by a few times. Even a nascent soul cultivator would be injured if he was drawn into the vortex. The black corpse who almost escaped from the flame was immediately sucked back into the vortex. As the 5th revolution Dragon Vortex Fire burned him, he immediately let out a miserable cry. Ning Fan, don't force me. I won't force you. I will only kill you. Fine. This old man will let you see what it means to destroy a country with 10,000 corpses. The black corpse's body trembled in anger. He shook the black pouch and nearly 1,000 giant harmonious spirit flying corpses flew out from it. They dived into the flame and self-detonated, blowing up the 5th revolution Dragon Vortex Fire. After that, he didn't stop and flipped the black pouch over. Nearly 6,000 vein-opening refined corpses, 2,000 harmonious spirit corpses and 100 gold core refined corpses emitted a putrid stench as they dispersed the flame and pounced towards Ning Fan. Ning Fan's eyes changed. 10,000 corpses. The black corpse's name of 10,000 corpses destroying a country was actually true. But so what if it was 10,000 corpses? Ning Fan closed his eyes and started again with sword light flashing in his eyes. At this moment, the killing intent in his body had completely turned into the awe-inspiring aura of exterminating a group of ghosts in the demon sinister forest. Destroy. He uttered a word indifferently. A sword sense that emitted a faint black chi spread out. All the refined corpses that were wrapped in the sword sense, whether they were vein-opening or harmonious spirit refined corpses, were directly minced into meat paste by the sword chi. Out of the 100 gold core refined corpses, 73 early gold core refined corpses were severed from the waist. As for the intermediate and late gold core refined corpses, even if they didn't die, they were still heavily injured by the sword sense. The so-called 10,000 corpses was actually destroyed by Ning Fan's magical technique. At this moment, the black corpse's expression changed drastically. He had never thought that Ning Fan had the legendary sword consciousness and sword sense. If he knew this earlier, he wouldn't have sent out the refined corpses to besiege Ning Fan. At most, he would have sent the intermediate and late gold core refined corpses to deal with Ning Fan. Sword sense was the nightmare of the refined corpses and soul refinement cultivators. You actually have sword sense. You definitely don't have the bullshit yin-yang evil vein. You have the sword divine vein and you are a person of the sword world. This old man will fight you to the death. The black corpse's eyes suddenly revealed a crazed look, as if he had a deep grudge against the people of the sword world. But all of this had nothing to do with Ning Fan. Under the black corpse's control, the 27 slightly injured intermediate and late gold core refined corpses flew towards Ning Fan and let out a strange roar. Each of them seemed like they were going to self-detonate, intending to perish together with Ning Fan. Ning Fan teleported 1,000 zhang away with a trace of ruthlessness in his eyes. The 5th revolution of the Dragon Vortex was his limit, but it wasn't enough to eliminate the black corpse. So he had to fight. He bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood essence on the black demon flame in front of him. It immediately increased the power of the black demon flame, but it was still far from the 6th revolution of the Dragon Vortex. When the refined corpses approached him again, Ning Fan teleported away and spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood essence. His face was already pale, but the power of the flame still hadn't reached the 6th revolution. Not enough again. With another teleportation, he increased the distance between them again. This time, Ning Fan heavily punched his chest, causing his chi to weaken rapidly. Then he spat out mouthfuls of blood essence on the black demon flame as if he didn't care about his life. The Dragon Vortex fire danced violently and turned into a huge fire dragon that stretched for thousands of zhang. The huge vortex was the mouth of the fire dragon. At this moment, the spiritual force within hundreds of thousands of li of Yu country seemed to be mobilized by this magical technique. Each of the cultivators was dumbfounded as they looked at the illusory black dragon in the sky. Within the black shadow, there was a trace of demonic power of a true dragon that gradually took shape. At the moment when the demonic power took shape, the eyes of the fire dragon suddenly revealed an indifferent and disdainful look. The sixth revolution of the dragon vortex could completely condense the shadow of a true dragon. The level of this technique could only be comprehended by peak nascent soul cultivators. Although Ningfan's realm was low, the power of this technique was more than enough to severely injure the black corpse. Madden, this is a madman. He wants to fight me to the death. Why? This old man and I have a deep hatred towards each other. A trace of fear rose in the black corpse's heart. If it was an ordinary cultivator, he would surely stop and negotiate with the black corpse after seeing that he wasn't easy to deal with. But this Ningfan simply wanted to fight to the death with the black corpse. His whole body was sucked into the dragon's mouth. In an instant, the black corpse immediately felt that the corpse that he was proud of was melting rapidly. Unless he was at his peak, he could barely resist the sixth revolution dragon flame. Now that he was trapped in the flame, he would be severely injured even if he didn't die. Ningfan's breath was as thin as a gossamer. With so much blood essence spurting out, his injuries were too severe. But in order to eliminate the black corpse, he didn't care about anything. Under his control, the black flame dragon opened its mouth and roared, spitting out countless black fireballs. The fireballs exploded outside the bodies of the gold core refined corpses, turning into a whirlpool of flames. The power of each of them wasn't any weaker than the fifth revolution dragon vortex fire. Almost in an instant, all the refined corpses turned into ashes. The black corpse, who was in the middle of the sea of flames, had a feeling that he was going to die. The flames were enough to severely injure him, but not enough to kill him. But when Ningfan's murderous gaze fell on him, the black corpse's heart shuddered. Black torrent spirit splitting technique. Ningfan pointed at his glabella. His sea of consciousness turned into black sword shadows, rushing out of his head and circling in the sky. The sword chi was like a black tide, diving into the black flame, setting off waves of raging waves in the sea of flames. Just like how it dealt with Tian Yitzi, thousands of swords were like the wind, engulfing the black corpse. Break. Ningfan ferociously crushed all the pills, pouring all his magical power and spirit sense into this attack. If there was enmity, there must be a life and death battle. This was what the old monster had taught him. After a series of whistling sounds of swords breaking and flames dispersing, Ningfan finally couldn't withstand the counterforce of the magical technique. He was hit by the heat wave of the magical technique and fell to the ground, coughing out blood nonstop. Countless fire shadows and sword chi shattered in the clear sky, revealing a charred corpse that was riddled with thousands of holes. This corpse no longer had any signs of decay. It was completely charred while the soul of the black corpse was completely incinerated into nothingness. Even so, this corpse wasn't destroyed. Was this the strength of a body that was close to the edge of corpse devil? If it was the real corpse devil in his cauldron ring, how strong would its body be? Ningfan breathed for a long time before he forced himself to stand up. He looked at the charred corpse from afar, muttering to himself. There was no joy of victory, only a trace of calmness. Moksha Emperor, I'm getting closer to you step by step. One day, you will end up like this corpse, he said plainly. Ningfan was calm because he had a stronger enemy. So, he would never be complacent before he killed Moksha Emperor. However, the cultivators of Ning City began to have their doubts after the clash of magical techniques. On the ancient battlefield thousands of miles away, the clash of magical techniques was too intense. It was truly a rare battle in Yu country for thousands of years. As for the result of this battle, they were most concerned about it. Who won? Was it Black Devil Ning and Ningfan, or the black corpse that annihilated the 7 countries? Under the nervous gaze of the cultivators, Suchio and Jingzhuo returned to Ning City by treading on the escaping light. The former's beautiful face still had a trace of surprise while the latter's face was full of sighs. It could be said to be extremely complicated. Jingzhua's expression made the hearts of the cultivators sink. The impatient Bu Guangfen asked straightforwardly, "Old ancestor, why are you frowning? Could it be that Black Devil Ning was defeated by that corpse devil?" "Defeated? Cough, cough, cough. You all can see for yourselves?" Jingzhua suddenly turned his head and looked afar. All the cultivators followed Jingzhua's gaze and vaguely saw a white-clothed and black-cloaked youth treading on the escaping light in the distant sky. The young man's qi seemed to be extremely weak, causing the ray of light he was traveling to become slightly unstable. However, his gaze was as calm as before. In his hand was a charred black corpse, as if he was showing off his spoils of war. Needless to say, all the cultivators felt relieved. The black corpse had been eliminated. There was no doubt about it. But whether this white-clothed and black-cloaked youth was Ning Fan or Black Devil Ning, one should know that Ning Fan and Black Devil Ning looked exactly the same. Bu Guangfen gave old ancestor Jingzhua a resentful glance. It was extremely strange for a burly man like him to have such an expression. "Old ancestor, you are really something. Since Master Black Devil has won, you should at least be happy. Why do you have to frown and make us worry? Happy to cough, cough, cough." Jingzhua indeed should be happy, but he couldn't. He had been oppressed by the black corpse, but Ning Fan had cast the 6th Revolution Dragon Fire that was comparable to a peak nascent realm magical technique and burnt the black corpse into a charred corpse. Jingzhua knew that the one who eliminated the black corpse wasn't Black Devil Ning, but Ning Fan. There was no such thing as a bullshit Black Devil Ning in this world. Therefore, he couldn't help but sigh. Was Ning Fan really an 18-year-old youth? Jingzhua was more willing to accept that Ning Fan was a 4th Revolution pill master and a nascent soul cultivator who had lived for hundreds and thousands of years. However, he was afraid that Jingzhua was the only one who felt this way. The other cultivators were cheering for Ning Fan. After Ning Fan landed in Ning City, Nangong, who had chased after the ship of Extreme Een Gate, returned with his men. The battle between the Yu and Devil armies had ended. Ning Fan was afraid that he would have to embark on the path of core formation. Weak as he was, he didn't even have time to rest before Jihe rushed into his arms, almost causing him to fall. Suqiu Xianzi was the first one to fall to the ground. Brother Fan, quickly take a look. What happened to Suqiu Xianzi? Why did she faint? He exclaimed. This is... Ning Fan's face turned ugly as he scanned the unconscious Suqiu with his spirit sense. Suqiu had been poisoned. Although the poison wasn't strong, it had gone deep into her body. It would be quite troublesome to detoxify it. He secretly said in his heart that he was being rude, but his palm was placed on Suqiu's feet. Sure enough, it's the poison from that time, this stubborn woman. She didn't even say anything when she was poisoned. She had been acting tough until now. Ning Fan shook his head gently, but he had a trace of admiration for Suqiu. Chapter 139. The destruction of Extreme Een Gate and the reappearance of the corpse devil 2,000 years ago had almost plunged Yu country into the crisis of extinction. In this battle, there were 3 nascent soul experts. During the battle, the dragon fire phenomenon was vaguely seen by all the experts in Yu country. The ancient battlefield that was the location of the decisive battle had been scorched into ruins within 100 miles. Not even a blade of grass could be seen. The cultivators who came to investigate the place stared with their mouths agape. There were even more cultivators who came to Ning City to meet the 2 nascent soul experts, Black Devil Ning and Jingzhua. But now, Ning City was under martial law. Jingzhua and Black Devil Ning were in seclusion. The one who received the cultivators was Nangong with a gentle smile. Ask me if you have any questions. Of course, I can't guarantee that what I said is the truth. Nangong sat on the high seat, leisurely enjoying his fragrant tea. At the side, a few sect masters of second-rate sects immediately handed over their storage pouches obediently with smiles on their faces. As the right-hand man of Lord Black Demon, Vice City Lord Nangong naturally has a lot of secrets that he can't tell you. It's understandable. This is just a small token of my respect. There's no need to be so courteous. I can't accept it, absolutely can't accept it. Nangong pretended to decline. The few sect masters gritted their teeth, took out a few more storage pouches and handed them over respectfully. Only then did Nangong reluctantly accept these valuable gifts. He scanned the storage pouches with his spirit sense and was afraid that there were at least 10,000 immortal jades inside. AI, it's hard to refuse such kindness. All right, I'll clear up some of your doubts. If you have any questions, please be frank with me. May I ask if the expert who killed the corpse devil is Master Black Devil? Rumor has it that Master Black Devil is revered Ning of Sinister Sparrow sect. Is this true? Of course it's nonsense. My young master is absolutely not a nascent soul expert or even a gold core expert. I can swear on my heart's devil. Nangong made a solemn vow, but it wasn't a lie. It was true that Ning Fan was just a half-step gold core expert. However, he wouldn't tell them whether Black Devil Ning was Ning Fan or not. Wasn't it better to be mysterious? Aya, why did Vice City Lord Nin make the great vow of the Heart Devil? How could we dare to ask other questions? Each of the old monsters showed a look of shame, as if they owed Master Nangong a favor. However, their intention of befriending Ning City became firmer. It's nothing. Nangong smiled and shook his head. At the side, Yuchi revealed a look of worship, while Situ, a rare muscle, twitched. Nangong was indeed worthy of being Nangong. After duping these old monsters of Yu country, 10,000 immortal jades were already in his hands. Nangong wouldn't keep this money for his own use, but for the construction of Ning City. The reason why Ning City didn't lack money was because of Nangong's contribution. Allow me to explain the details of this battle to you fellow Taoists. As soon as Nangong spoke, all the old monsters sat on their seats and listened attentively, fearing that they would miss a single detail. Every time they heard something horrifying, even those old monsters' expressions would change slightly. When they heard the last part of the story, Black Devil Ning came in black, turned into a black shadow, annihilated Tian Yitzi, and killed the corpse devil in a blink. Everyone's eyes were burning with passion. The elusive Black Devil Ning was actually so powerful. Vice City Lord Nan, can you make an exception and let us meet Master Black Devil? I'm afraid this might be a little troublesome. Everyone should know that our Black Devil City Lord has gone into seclusion again after the battle. I'm afraid that he won't come out for a few decades. Of course, if Ning City is in danger, he will still lend a hand. It's understandable, but we really don't have the fortune to meet each other. Pity. Nangong was in charge of receiving the cultivators of Yu country. Situ was in charge of reorganizing the casualties and reorganizing the 4 guards of Ning City. Yuchi was in charge of repairing the underground fire vein. Ning Fan, the hands-off boss, was currently in a secret chamber, regulating his breathing. On the bed beside him was In Suchio, who had been unconscious for 3 days. The poison had been temporarily suppressed by the pills. However, this poison was too powerful. Even the Void Primordial Pill of the Great Void Sect could not get rid of it completely. Even though it was not difficult to neutralize it, the process would be quite troublesome. Thus, Ning Fan could only adjust his breathing and slightly stabilize his injuries. The battle with the Black Corpse had caused him severe injuries. In order to advance the Dragon Vortex Fire to the 6th Revolution and threaten the Black Corpse, Ning Fan had consumed a lot of blood essence. His divine soul was already deficient because he had severed his soul and molded his incarnation. Now that he had lost his blood essence, his body's primordial chi was greatly depleted. Without any special means, he would need at least a few decades of seclusion to recover his blood essence. It was inevitable that his lifespan would be shortened. Perhaps, Ning Fan's current lifespan was less than 200 years. He sat cross-legged on the cushion. The spoils of the battle were displayed on the ground in front of him. Ning Fan closed his eyes slightly, contemplating the gains and losses of the battle. Old Devil Purple Een had quite a number of high-grade magical arts, such as the nascent realm magical art Wind Soul Claw. However, this kind of magical art could only be used by wind spirit cultivators and was useless to Ning Fan. However, Ning Fan was very interested in one of the cultivation methods of Old Devil Purple Een. Evil Art. This cultivation method was to cultivate the Een Pearl technique. In extreme Een Gate, everyone from the old ancestor to the disciples cultivated this technique. However, this technique of Old Devil Purple Een was certainly of a higher level than the others. This technique not only recorded the process of condensing the Een Pearl, but also the method to fuse the Een Pearl with the gold core. According to Ning Fan's estimation, if he could condense the Een Pearl and fuse it with the gold core like Old Devil Purple Een, his gold core would be stronger and sturdier than ordinary people. Moreover, it would increase his chances of breaking through to the nascent soul realm by at least 10%. This technique was quite useful to Ning Fan, but before he formed his gold core, he wouldn't be able to use it. Apart from this magical art to fuse the gold core, among the spoils of Old Devil Purple Een, there was only a purple alms bowl that could attract Ning Fan's attention. This purple alms bowl was a high-grade intermediate magical treasure. However, it seemed to be fused with a trace of spirit intent. As a result, it could absorb all the magical treasures that attacked Purple Een into it. Apart from that, there was nothing else in Old Devil Purple Yin's possessions that could move Ning Fan's heart. Ning Fan's vision was pretty high. However, the storage of the black corpse couldn't be underestimated by Ning Fan. Apart from all the magical treasures and pills, the thing that caught Ning Fan's attention the most was an ancient fiend god cultivation method, Corpse Devil Record. This cultivation method recorded the method to open the corpse devil vein and the method to turn a corpse into an immortal 3 times. Apart from that, there were also several ancient fiend god divine abilities. Ning Fan already had the Yin Yang devil vein, so it was impossible for him to cultivate the corpse devil vein. However, the ancient fiend god divine abilities made Ning Fan's eyes light up. The memories of ancient chaos didn't contain any fiend god divine abilities, but compared to the corpse devil record, it contained the lifetime experience and memories of an immortal emperor. It was hard to say which one was better, but these divine abilities were still very useful to Ning Fan. Corpse Transformation Technique. This technique stimulated the corpse chi of the corpse devil vein and could directly refine a cultivator into a living corpse. Third corpse pupil. This pupil required the cultivator to cultivate the corpse devil vein and open the heavenly eye vein between the eyebrows. If he could successfully cultivate the third corpse pupil, he wouldn't mind using the illusory technique, but using the trace of 3 corpses' evil sense was what tempted Ning Fan. Every cultivator had 3 corpses. Even a true immortal would be afraid of the evil sense. The evil sense of the black corpse was only superficial and not considered as the 3 corpses' evil sense. Not to mention Ning Fan, even among the true immortals in the 4 heavens immortal world, only a few of them could do so. Unfortunately, he didn't have the corpse devil vein, so he couldn't open the 3rd vertical eye. The reason why the 3rd corpse pupil needed the 3rd vertical eye to store the evil sense was because the evil sense couldn't be touched by the cultivator himself. He could only open another vein to store it. If I found another way to store the evil sense, I might be able to use my eyes to store the evil sense. Ning Fan pondered. If that was the case, he could use the 3rd corpse pupil even without the 3rd eye. The only thing he needed to worry about was how to resist the evil sense of the 3 corpses. Perhaps, the black-clothed incarnation could resist it. After all, that incarnation didn't have a heart or mind. If that was the case, he could give it a try. Apart from these, the black corpse also had a few powerful body-refining techniques. One of them was the Colossal Bone's secret art, which allowed him to transform into a 10-zhang tall giant. To Ning Fan, this technique was extremely useful. And the biggest loot was probably the black corpse itself. The black corpse had been burnt into a charred corpse by Ning Fan. The strength of the corpse's body made Ning Fan understand it. If he could refine this corpse into a refined corpse, it would be a pretty good fighter. Perhaps, with this refined corpse, he would be able to fight against ordinary nascent soul realm cultivators. Apart from that, there were many other spoils of war. But when Suqiu Xianzi moaned on the bed, Ning Fan didn't have time to think about these things anymore. The secret chamber was made of stone and covered with silk. A girl in light yellow clothes was sleeping. Judging from her appearance, she was just a young girl who hadn't seen the world. But those who knew her would know that she was an old monster who had lived for 600 years. She was the old ancestor of the Great Void Sect, In Suchio. Her delicate eyebrows were tightly knitted in pain even though she was in a coma. The moaning was just her groan. During the battle that day, she was ambushed by the Black Corpse and was poisoned by the death silkworm poison. If an ordinary gold core realm cultivator was poisoned by this poison, they would probably die immediately. But Suchio used her powerful strength to suppress the poison. She only fainted when the battle ended. The reason for the poison was most likely because Ning Fan had asked her to chase after the Black Corpse to activate her magical power. At the end of the day, it was Ning Fan's fault that the poison acted up. Ning Fan once again understood this girl's stubbornness. She didn't even say anything when she was poisoned. If it was Jiha, she would have screamed the moment she was poisoned. This girl's heart was firm enough to seek the Tao. No wonder she could become an old ancestor of the Great Void Sect in just 600 years of cultivation. It was impossible for Ning Fan to ignore the death of this girl. After all, he was touched when this girl rushed to help Ning City alone. If that's the case, I'm sorry, Ning Fan murmured in a low voice as if he was talking to himself. Immediately, he lifted Suchio Shinzi's skirt that no one had lifted in the past 600 years. There was another skirt that was lifted by Ning Fan. Immediately, Suchio Shinzi's jade-like legs were exposed. However, there were purplish-red veins on her jade-like legs, as if a silkworm was crawling on her legs. The skirt was lifted all the way to her calf's knee before it stopped. The purplish-red veins stopped there. There was no need to continue lifting the skirt. If Suchio were to continue lifting the skirt, it would be troublesome even if she woke up after she was cured of the poison. It was a very beautiful leg. Although it was slightly introverted due to sitting on the praying mat all day long, the shape of the leg was quite similar to the legs of the women of In Country who were kneeling for a long time. Ning Fan's mind had a fleeting thought, but he immediately extinguished it. He blamed himself and collected his thoughts. He took off Suchio's shoes and silk socks, revealing a pair of jade-like feet. Different from Suchio's slightly flawed legs, her feet were like natural jade ornaments, almost perfect. However, her feet were too sensitive. When Ning Fan accidentally touched her toes, the unconscious Suchio immediately let out a soft gasp. This gasp made Ning Fan's mind swayed. He held the jade-like feet in his hand. His heart was momentarily disturbed by the heart devil. What I am holding is the feet of the noblest woman in U Country. No matter how high she is, she still has to be played by me. This voice made Ning Fan lose his mind for a moment, but immediately, a cold light formed in his eyes, crushing this evil thought. Get lost. After suppressing the heart devil, Ning Fan's eyes regained their clarity and apologized in his heart. In any sense, he had profaned Suchio Shinzi. It was really a waste for him to have evil thoughts towards his benefactor. The dead silkworm poison isn't difficult to cure. It's not difficult to cure it by concocting the medicinal liquid of 17,000 years old spiritual herbs according to the silkworm's poison. But first, I need to guide the poison back to the place where it was poisoned, Ning Fan sighed. His hands were placed on both of Suchio's knees. He secretly circulated his magical power and guided the poison back to her feet. Cold and smooth, unknowingly, Suchio Shinzi's light gasps seemed to have quickened. When the poison returned slightly, she woke up, but she didn't dare to open her eyes because she found that her calf was being stroked by Ning Fan back and forth. What is he doing? How dare he? Suchio Shinzi almost wanted to slap Ning Fan, this frivolous man. But immediately she found out that Ning Fan was curing her poison. Her heart softened. Since it was curing poison, how could she refuse? But she mustn't open her eyes. Otherwise, both of them would be extremely embarrassed. As such, she could only endure the heat from Ning Fan's palm to her calf, ankle, and toes. Her feet were too sensitive, as if she could sense the number of palm prints on Ning Fan's palm. Her face gradually turned red, but her heart was painfully enduring. It would be fine if she was unconscious, but when she woke up, she would never let out that shameful moan. As an old ancestor of the righteous path, how could she be so submissive? However, the more she endured, the redder her face became. Although her state of mind didn't lose control, her body became more and more numb. Hurry up, help me detoxify the poison. In her heart, she secretly prayed that Ning Fan could hurry up and end this abnormal nightmare of hers. Chapter 141. A slight mist spread out, making it hard to see her skin. And this woman couldn't let go of one thing in her heart. At this moment, the door opened and Ning Fan's teasing voice came from outside. "Cece, where are you feeling uncomfortable? Do you need master to check? Oh, there's the sound of water. Are you bathing? I'm coming in. Wait." Si Wuxia immediately pursed her lips and jumped out of the wooden tub. She used her magical power to evaporate the water. Then she waved her hand and clothes flew into her hands. She quickly put them on. It seemed that because her mind was in a mess, she buttoned her clothes wrongly. But it was too late to put them on again because Ning Fan had already pushed the door open with a smile on his face, approaching Si Wuxia step by step. "Smells good, very clean, not bad. I heard from Jihe that you are not feeling well and asked me to treat your illness, but it seems like you are trying to seduce master? Is it a heart disease? Don't touch me." Facing the approaching Ning Fans, Si Wuxia looked slightly nervous. She flicked her sleeve and a sword shadow appeared in her palm, pointing straight at Ning Fan's chest. Ning Fan stopped his footsteps. His face no longer had a teasing smile as he secretly sighed. Sure enough, this woman had recovered her memory. She was no longer the silly little girl who longed for him to pamper her even in her dreams. "Si Wuxia, you really have recovered your memory. Tell me, what do you want?" "I want the nascent formation Dan. If you don't give it to me, I will kill you." There was a trace of coldness in Si Wuxia's eyes. All of her memories had been recovered. She remembered that it was the young man in front of her who single-handedly destroyed Heaven Beast sect, humiliated, imprisoned her, erased her memory and made her into a spiritual puppet. And after she lost her memory, she was like a maidservant, serving this man respectfully. This made Si Wuxia feel humiliated. Every time she regained a trace of her memory, her killing intent towards Ning Fan would grow stronger. Even now, when she was teased by Ning Fan, she couldn't wait to stab Ning Fan's chest with her sword, but her hands were trembling. This trembling didn't escape Ning Fan's eyes. This sword was only a middle-grade magical treasure. Ning Fan's body refining realm was already silver bone, so this sword couldn't hurt him at all. What Ning Fan was most concerned about was Si Wuxia's attitude. The reason why he teased her when he entered the room was just to hide the nervousness in his heart. From the bottom of his heart, Ning Fan didn't want to see Cece turn back into her enemy, Si Wuxia, but it seemed like this wish was an extravagant hope. "You want the nascent soul pill? Is this the reason why you lent me a hand in Ning City that day?" Ning Fan sighed. "What else do you think? Sure. I happen to have one more nascent formation pill. Since old Devil Purple Een is dead, his pill will belong to you." Ning Fan slightly closed his eyes and patted his storage pouch. He took out a delicate jade box and threw it to Si Wuxia. "You've already obtained the nascent formation pill. What are you going to do next?" "Humph, for the sake of the nascent soul formation pill, I will spare your life. From today onwards, we don't owe each other anything." Si Wuxia seemed a little weak. "You're leaving? You don't want to kill me? Is it because you don't dare or you can't bear it?" Ning Fan suddenly opened his eyes and stared at Si Wuxia's eyes, as if he was trying to find the trace of Cece. "I'm just too lazy to kill you. Don't bother me anymore. Otherwise, I'll kill you." "You can't kill me." Ning Fan flicked his finger on the long sword in Si Wuxia's hand. The long sword trembled and immediately shattered into pieces. Only a body refinement realm expert who had broken through to the silver bone realm could shatter a sword with a flick of his finger. After shattering Si Wuxia's magical treasure, Ning Fan seized the opportunity and pulled Si Wuxia into his embrace. Si Wuxia was shocked to find that she, a peak gold core expert, didn't even have the strength to struggle in Ning Fan's embrace. "How can you be so powerful? A year ago, you couldn't even withstand my attack, and let go of me. Otherwise, don't worry, Si Wuxia. This hug isn't for you, but for Cece. You can leave now. I won't keep you here or erase your memory. However, If you dare to harm Ning City or Ji He, when I ascend to the four heavens immortal world in the future, I will let everyone know that the Saintess of Jade Lake struggled in my embrace. Ning Fan's threatening words didn't contain any killing intent, but when Si Wuxia heard it, her expression changed immediately. How dare you! If you dare to ruin my reputation... Si Wuxia fell into Ning Fan's embrace and couldn't break free. She sadly realized that she had no words to threaten Ning Fan. The Saintess of Jade Lake must be a pure and holy woman. She couldn't tolerate any blasphemy. Not to mention that she had been seen naked by Ning Fan, let alone this hug. Even if a man touched her finger, it would be a great sin. She was unwilling, but even if she recovered her memory, Si Wuxia still wasn't Ning Fan's opponent and couldn't even escape from his embrace. But at this moment, Ning Fan loosened his grip and casually sat on a nearby table. He poured out the jade pot and drank some wine. You can leave now, before I change my mind. His back was facing Si Wuxia, exposing all his flaws. But Si Wuxia felt that even if Ning Fan's back was facing her, once she attacked, Ning Fan could easily kill her. She couldn't bear to kill Ning Fan, but she also didn't think of harming Ning City. She was still CC, a CC who had obtained Si Wuxia's memory. She wouldn't hurt Ji if she didn't expect that it would be so easy for her to ask for a nascent formation pill from Ning Fan's hand. Her original threats seemed to be useless now. She also didn't expect that Ning Fan's strength was far stronger than her and would let her go. With Ning Fan's strength, it shouldn't be difficult for him to erase her memory and remake her into a spiritual puppet. She still didn't believe it and went out the door with her wet hair. Sure enough, Ning Fan didn't stop her. Why didn't he stop me and kill me? Si Wuxia tiptoed and soared into the sky. None of the evil cultivators in Ning City chased after her. They just let this woman leave on the moon. After Si Wuxia left, Nangong walked in from the shadows outside the door. He looked at Ning Fan, who was drinking, and asked in confusion, "Young lord, is it appropriate to let this person go like this? This person is the sect master of Heaven Separation Sect. He has a blood feud with Ning City and Seven Apricot City." Blood feud? Not to that extent. Her hatred towards me is only to destroy Heaven Separation Sect and ruin her plan. I don't know what her plan is in the lower world, and I don't want to know. But I can be sure that a great figure above the four heavens is only a small matter to a mere Heaven Separation Sect in the lower world. With her innocence as a threat, she won't do anything drastic. According to her personality, she will run as far away as possible, afraid that I will go back on my words and capture her. Ning Fan was still drinking. "Young lord, these words aren't from your heart." Nangong frowned. I can't hide anything from you. I can't bear to kill her. No, it's not that I can't bear to kill Si Wuxia, it's that I can't bear to kill Cici. If I erase her memory again, perhaps I will erase Cici as well. Forget it, that's good. This woman won't be able to stir up any big waves. My enemy is far more terrifying than this Si Wuxia. Nangong, I will temporarily leave for these 10 days. I will return after 10 days. At this moment, Ning Fan put down the wine cup and went out the door, disappearing into the night. Si Wuxia's grudge was settled like this. Next, there were still some trivial matters that needed to be dealt with. It was a very complicated matter that was hard to give up. Inside the room, Nangong deeply sighed. Young lord isn't cold-blooded enough, but perhaps this is the reason why the Lord accepted him as a disciple? In the snowstorm of Seven Apricot City, a young man was treading on the snow alone. He wore a white robe on the inside and a black cloak on the outside. The black cloak had black feathers that looked like a cloak, giving this thin and pale young man an invisible heroic spirit. The moment he stepped into Seven Apricot City, there were immediately dozens of evil cultivators at the city gate, as if they were facing a great enemy. They couldn't sense the aura of this young man at all. Even when the young man came close to the city gate, they could only see him with their naked eyes and couldn't sense his aura. Who was this person? Could he be a gold coral devil? These evil cultivators that were guarding the city were newly recruited by the 4 families of Seven Apricot City after the 3 divine armies left. Their aura was not as strong as the 3 divine armies, And their courage and knowledge were even worse. Some of them had never seen a gold-core old devil before. It was even more impossible for these people to know the young man that the old monster brought back to 7 Apricot City. Who is it? A few vein-opening evil cultivators gathered their courage and asked. Young Lord of 7 Apricot Ning Fans. Ning Fan smiled faintly and waved his sleeve. A gentle breeze blew away the weapons of the evil cultivators and entered the city. In the snowstorm, after hearing Ning Fan's name, the evil cultivators were immediately stunned like ice sculptures. It's revered Ning of Sinister Sparrow Sect. No, the young lord has returned. This is my 7 Apricot young lord, such a sharp aura. Aya, scared me to death. I thought that the person who came was one of those righteous cultivators that came on a sword. Humph, those people are only harmonious spirit cultivators, yet they dared to shout at the city lord. They really don't know the rules. These unintentional words of the evil cultivators were not loud, but how could it escape Ning Fan's ears? In a flash, Ning Fan suddenly stopped his footsteps and his eyes flashed a trace of cold light. You just said that someone came to my 7 Apricot City to cause trouble? Replying to young lord, it is true. I heard that those people have a great background. It seems that they have some grudges with the city lord. Before the evil cultivators could finish their words, they saw a soul-stirring murderous intent rising from the young man in front of them. Within the murderous intent, there was also a trace of worry. His spirit sense swept out and covered 1,000 li of land. In the Sea Fan Palace of 7 Apricot City, he immediately sensed dozens of tyrannical chi. Among them, there were even a few people who dared to dig a grave, Little Dugu's grave. Who is it? How dare you? A cold harumph came out from Ning Fan's mouth. It carried an indescribable pressure. In an instant, the faces of several burly men who were digging the graves turned pale. They coughed out blood and retreated. Their faces were filled with fear. This is a nascent soul old devil? Chapter 142. If he didn't sense that the old monster was fine, Ning Fan would have used his sword sense to kill these cultivators one by one. He had cultivated for 2 years and rarely got angry, but this didn't mean that he didn't have a reverse scale. 7 Apricot City was his reverse scale. Sea Fan Palace. Before the grave diggers could recover from the shocking voice, they saw a black light flickering in the sky. In front of each of them, under the snow apricot flowers, a young man appeared out of thin air. This young man had a cold expression. There was a star on his glabella and sword chi was soaring in his eyes. In front of this young man, each of the cultivators felt that they weren't facing a person, but a sword. A devil sword that swept through the ages, killed gods and Buddhas, and had an invincible baleful aura. This was Ning Fan in the eyes of ordinary cultivators. Among this group of harmonious spirit cultivators, the higher their cultivation, the deeper their perception of the young man's sword chi. Each of these cultivators was wearing a silver sword robe. Each of them carried 4 flying swords on their back. On their silver robes, there was a sword mark embroidered on them. Behind the grave diggers stood a young man with a pale face. He seemed to be around 25 or 26 years old and was a late harmonious spirit cultivator. To have such a cultivation in his 20s, his aptitude was extremely monstrous. This person was obviously the leader of this group of cultivators. The flying swords on his back weren't just 4, but 6. Sensing Ning Fan's terrifying chi, the pale young man frowned slightly, but he didn't panic. He separated the crowd and walked to the front, clasped his fists, and said with a hint of arrogance, "This friend, we, the sword guards of the sword world, are here for private matters. Those who have nothing to do with this, please leave quickly and don't get involved." Sword world? Ning Fan's eyes slightly narrowed. He seemed to recall that the old monster and the sword world did have some grudges. This old man's Dao companion seemed to be the beloved daughter of a great figure in the sword world. And this little Dugu who was buried here also seemed to have the same identity. Could it be that the grave diggers were the relatives of little Dugu? Otherwise, if they didn't have a great background, how could they enter the Rain Immortal world? One should know that the immortal worlds had strict control over each other. They wouldn't easily allow cultivators from other worlds to enter their own worlds. If this group of cultivators had a great background in the sword world, then they would be allowed to enter the Rain Immortal world. The reason why these cultivators were only at the harmonious spirit realm was probably because they were following the arrangements of the Rain Immortal world and did not dare to send any experts to this world. If that was the case, Ning Fan could understand why the old monster didn't stop these people from entering Si Fan Palace and wasn't angry at them. With the old monster's personality, even if he lost all of his cultivation base, he wouldn't allow anyone to enter Si Fan Palace, the place where he once lived with his Dao companion. Seeing that Ning Fan remained silent after hearing the name of the sword world, the fair-skinned young man seemed to be quite proud of himself. So what if he was a nascent soul cultivator? In a barren land like the state of Yu, one could be the patriarch of a country. However, in the sword world, in the family of this fair-skinned young man, a nascent soul cultivator was just average. Since you know that the sword realm is doing something here, why aren't you retreating quickly? The fair-skinned young man seemed to have found the right to be arrogant. However, what he got in return was Ning Fan's cold eyes. So what if it's the sword realm? As Ning Fan's eyes turned serious, his sword sense swept across the place silently. A trace of deadly crisis suddenly rose in the hearts of dozens of sword cultivators, including the fair-skinned young man. In an instant, the fair-skinned young man withdrew all of his complacency, leaving only fear and disbelief on his face. Sword consciousness. Sword sense. He couldn't help but be shocked. A nascent soul cultivator might not be a big deal in the sword world, but a sword cultivator who possessed sword consciousness and sword sense was as rare as a phoenix feather and a unicorn horn in the sword world. Each of them was a void fragmentation sword emperor. A void fragmentation sword cultivator was not enough to be called a sword emperor. Ghost emperor, demon emperor, sword emperor. Anyone who had the word emperor in their name was an invincible existence. As for the sword world, it became the strongest immortal world below the devil world, demon world, and heaven immortal world. Each of the sword emperor old ancestors could kill countless low-level cultivators with a single thought. The fair-skinned young man couldn't believe that Ning Fan in front of him was a genius sword cultivator who had the potential to become a sword emperor. Moreover, the sword chi in Ning Fan's sword sense was extremely weak, but it was overbearing enough to kill all cultivators below the early gold core realm. What made the fair-skinned young man even more incredulous was that Ning Fan still dared to kill them despite knowing that they had a great background in the sword world. Ning Fan didn't hesitate to offend a sword emperor old ancestor of the sword world to kill them. He's a madman. Just as Ning Fan was about to kill them, a voice came from the grave and outside the courtyard. Ning Fan, don't kill them. Fan heirs, stop. After the two voices, the soul of a beautiful woman flew out from the grave and stood under the plum tree. Outside the courtyard, a black-robed old man staggered into the courtyard. The woman wore a white robe. Her shoulders were smooth and slender. Her black hair was like a waterfall. Her waist was slender and there was a plum blossom on her temple. She stood in the bleak wind and snow, looking noble and lonely like a plum blossom. Her eyes were sorrowful, but there was a trace of sad sword intent. Now that Ning Fan had comprehended the divine rain intent, he vaguely noticed that the sharp sword intent in her eyes was as special as the divine intent. Perhaps, this was the intent that a spirit-severing sword cultivator must comprehend in the sword world. Could little Dugu be a spirit-severing cultivator when she was alive? Looking at the old monster again, he was still wearing a black robe, but his insolent eyes had turned into silence. His black hair had turned white. It seemed like he hadn't lived a peaceful life in the past 2 years. This made Ning Fan feel a little sad. He sighed softly and his hostility towards Moksha Emperor deepened. If it wasn't for Moksha Emperor, the old monster might still be a true immortal and still be free and unfettered in the four heavens immortal world. If it wasn't for Moksha Emperor, the old monster might have already recovered his cultivation and roamed freely in the rain world. 2 years had passed, but 7 Apricot City seemed to have changed. While Ning Fan was observing little Dugu and the old monster, the two of them were also observing Ning Fan. Little Dugu's eyes revealed a trace of imperceptible joy when Ning Fan returned. When she sensed Ning Fan's nascent soul chi, sword sense and sword consciousness, she couldn't help but be surprised for a long time. Especially the sword chi in Ning Fan's sword sense. She didn't know where it came from, but it made little Dugu, who had comprehended the sword intent, feel a trace of fear. Sword intent. Ordinary cultivators could also comprehend the sword intent, but it was only the surface of the sword chi. It wasn't the true sword intent. Only spirit-severing cultivators could comprehend the true sword intent. Little Dugu had comprehended her own sword intent before the spirit-severing realm. In the past, she was known as one of the 3 heroes of the sword world. But even she didn't have the sword consciousness and sword sense like when she was in the nascent soul realm. For the first time, little Dugu realized that she couldn't see through Ning Fan. It wasn't only his personality, but also his cultivation. It was as if everything was shrouded in mist. In less than 2 years, he had become an expert of his generation. Little Dugu's sigh deepened. He had such a good aptitude, but why did he choose to cultivate the devil path? Her clan was one of the 3 royal clans of the sword world. Her father, the emperor, hated devil cultivators the most. The old devil and her elder sister were a tragedy. If Ning Fan wasn't a devil cultivator, how good would it be? Her mind was filled with wild thoughts. After thinking about many things, she finally remembered one thing. Not good. This little demon Ning once said that if he breaks through to the nascent soul realm, he will come back and take away my 3rd sword chi. If it was any other time, he would just take it away. But now, if he takes away this sword chi in front of the people of the sword world, he will surely cause a great disaster. Compared to marrying Little Devil Ning, Little Dugu was more worried about Little Devil Ning's safety. The old devil was also sizing Ning Fan up. For the first time, his silent expression revealed a gratified expression. Stinking brat, your incarnation is quite incredible. I was quite worried when I heard that you were going to the endless sea, but I'm relieved to see that you have such strength. This way, I will be able to walk a safer path. There was a hidden meaning in the old devil's words, and Ning Fan immediately understood it. Where do you want to go? Your current cultivation base. At this point, he stopped talking and glanced at the people of the sword world. Some words couldn't be said in front of these people. Han Yuanji will naturally follow us back to the sword world. My emperor has already heard about the matter of Moksha Emperor. This time, he came to bring the 2 ladies back. Of course, if Han Yuanji is thick-skinned and follows us back, my emperor will protect him for the sake of the 2 ladies. With my emperor's presence, even Moksha Emperor won't dare to do anything to Han Yuanji. With the old devil's support, the fair-skinned youth was sure that Ning Fan wouldn't dare to kill him, so he revealed his arrogant face again. After listening to the fair-skinned youth's words, Ning Fan didn't argue with him. Instead, he closed his eyes. With the old devil's character, he certainly wouldn't lower his face to beg others. If he didn't want to leave, a mere harmonious spirit cultivator wouldn't be able to stop him. Was he really afraid of Moksha Emperor? Afraid that Moksha Emperor would take his life after 100 years? If he was afraid, he wouldn't have stayed in the rain world in the past. He would have had countless opportunities to lower his head to the 3 emperors of the sword world. Perhaps the reason why he went back now was because he was worried about me. If the old devil went to the sword world, Moksha Emperor wouldn't come to the rain world to seek revenge after 100 years. Perhaps he would come to the sword world. The old devil was protecting me. Why do you have to be like this? Ning Fan opened his eyes and couldn't bear it. I'm not suffering. But you brat, you are always thinking about the 100 years of void fragmentation in your heart. This isn't good. Cultivators need perseverance and a little persistence to not lose themselves in the sea of blood. However, if that persistence becomes obsession and the obsession turns into a heart devil, 1,000 years of void fragmentation won't be a problem with your aptitude. Don't give yourself too much pressure. That might destroy you. The old devil laughed and patted Ning Fan's shoulder solemnly for the first time. Are you afraid that I won't be a match for Moksha Emperor after 100 years? That's right. I'm afraid. I'm not afraid of death. I'm afraid of something else. You are my only hope to save her. I can die, but you can't. I accepted you as my disciple with ulterior motives. Do you know that you can hate me? Given your personality, I would be surprised if you accepted me as your disciple without any ulterior motives. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be who I am today. Perhaps I would have escaped from the all-pleasure sect that day and died in a remote place without anyone knowing. No matter what the reason was for you to accept me as your disciple, this kindness has been planted. If you have any requests, I won't refuse. Ning Fan said solemnly. This pair of master and disciple didn't have much affection for each other. The reason why they were fated was because of benefits. The old devil accepted him as his disciple because he hoped to save someone. Ning Fan accepted him as his master because he was forced by death. But later on, the two of them gradually realized that their personalities were very compatible with each other. Gradually, the relationship between master and disciple began to accumulate. It was the old devil who gave Ning Fan the goal to cultivate the evil Tao. And Ning Fan gave the old devil the hope to save his lover. Ning Fan didn't ask the old devil what he wanted to do. He wouldn't refuse. He could see that this matter was extremely important to the old devil. It must be related to the girl he admired. I want to go to the sword world. I won't die. You don't need to put so much pressure on yourself. 100 years later, the ruins of the ancient heavenly court will open. Don't compete with Moksha Emperor. You just need to blend in and obtain the fortune. With your wisdom and means, even if you can't defeat Moksha Emperor, you can still protect yourself. As for my request, I can tell you some of it now. I guess you have already guessed it. I need you to save someone. It's that simple. Do you agree or not? Do I have a reason to refuse? Ning Fan smiled faintly. The old devil also laughed. On the side, the fair-skinned youth's face was full of pride. However, he was ignored by the two of them. This made his self-esteem suffer greatly. He didn't dare to do anything to Ning Fan. Then, he would teach the old devil a lesson on the way back to the sword world. Come. Second miss, please return to the sword world. Eldest miss, please return to the sword world. As for the Bluestone Sword Chi, second miss and the Sword Emperor had an agreement. If someone could take away 3 of the Sword Chi, second miss would not marry the grandson of the Divine Emperor. She would marry the person who took the sword. Now there is only 1 Sword Chi left. Second miss has lost the bet. Before the fair-skinned youth came, he was warned repeatedly. It seemed that the imperial ancestor attached great importance to little Dugu's vow. After hearing this, little Dugu's face turned pale and revealed a look of extreme disgust. Even if I lost the bet, I still won't marry that person. Hee, this subordinate can't make the decision. Come, erase the Bluestone Sword Chi. This is the secret sword of the Sword Emperor. It must not be leaked. Under the command of the fair-skinned youth, a few harmonious spirit men immediately went to smash the Bluestone and destroy the Sword Chi. The secret sword of the Sword Emperor was extremely special. Outsiders would never be able to comprehend its profundity. Only by obtaining a trace of Sword Chi and using it to comprehend it could one have the chance to comprehend the Sword Chi. In the past, little Dugu had an agreement with the Sword Emperor. That was why she was bestowed with 3 Sword Chi. However, she lived in the Si Fan Palace and didn't allow outsiders to enter or touch the Sword Chi. Naturally, no one could take away the Sword Chi. However, Ning Fan had taken away 2 Sword Chi in a row, almost completing the vow. If Ning Fan took away the 3 Sword Chi, little Dugu would have no choice but to marry Ning Fan. She had made a great heart devil oath. Otherwise, how could the dignified Sword Emperor allow little Dugu to leave the sword world so easily, even if little Dugu was the daughter of another Sword Emperor? Seeing that the Bluestone was about to shatter and the vow dissipated, little Dugu heaved a sigh of relief despite her reluctance. She could learn the secret sword of the Sword Emperor because it was bestowed by the Sword Emperor. If outsiders were to cultivate it and the sword world knew about it, they would be erased. Ning Fan must not take away the Sword Chi in front of the people of the sword world. Otherwise, he would provoke the Sword Emperor of the sword world before settling the matter with Moksha Emperor. While she was filled with worries, the old monster sneered at her side. Brat, what do you think about the power of the Sword Chi on this Bluestone? This sword contains a trace of divine intent. Although it is a nascent soul sword chi, no early nascent soul cultivator would be able to resist it. Even an intermediate nascent soul cultivator would find it hard to resist it. If my cultivation base reaches nascent soul, I would be invincible below intermediate nascent soul realm with this sword chi. Then why aren't you going to take it? This is a good thing. That's right. I came back to 7 Apricot City with the intention of taking this sword. Ning Fan's eyes swept across the old monster, little Dugu, and the cultivators of the sword world. From the words of the fair-skinned youth, he could vaguely guess that this sword chi was very important. That was why he didn't take it immediately. But at this moment, the old monster said that he was going to take it. He could hear that the old monster wanted him to take the sword chi, even if it might offend a great figure of the sword world. However, taking away this sword chi would obviously make the old monster happy. It would also help little Dugu greatly. This sword chi belongs to me. He flicked his sleeve, dispersing a few harmonious spirit cultivators. He patted his storage pouch and took out an empty sword scabbard. He then kept the third sword chi in the blue stone. This was the nascent soul sword chi, heart-drawing sword. The moment he took away the sword chi, the fair-skinned youth's expression changed drastically and roared in anger. You dare to take away this sword chi? Aren't you afraid of offending the 70 million sword cultivators of the sword world? No, I won't go to the sword world. Ning Fan smiled faintly, but his eyes turned cold and added, if I go to the sword world, no one will dare to touch me, not even the godly king of the sword world. Why should I be afraid? The fair-skinned youth took a few steps back. Under Ning Fan's killing intent, his face turned pale and he didn't dare to speak anymore. He would have to bear a great sin if he lost the sword chi. But if he offended Ning Fan, he would die on the spot. Ning Fan was a madman. He knew that taking away the sword chi would offend a ruthless person, but he still took it. Perhaps this time, the fair-skinned youth would barely complete the task of the little Dugu clan after returning to the sword world, but it would still be hard to complete the task of the sword palace. What to do, what to do? When the fair-skinned youth's expression changed dramatically, little Dugu was stomping her feet in anger and shame. That hateful old monster. He clearly knew what oath this sword chi represented, but he still encouraged Ning Fan to take it. And that hateful little monster Ning actually took it away. Doesn't that mean, oh right, what is the special meaning of taking away this sword chi? Ning Fan asked after realizing it. There is no special meaning. But she is yours. The old monster pointed at little Dugu with an extremely carefree expression. Wait a minute. This joke isn't funny. Ning Fan was confused, just like the old monster that day. Chapter 143. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If he knew that he would have to bear the burden of a girl's life by taking away the sword chi, he wouldn't have been so reckless. Even if he wanted to help little Dugu, he could have found another way. He was tricked by the old monster. The old monster's unscrupulous smile made Dugu stomp her feet in embarrassment while Ning Fan recollected his thoughts. His eyes were fixed on Dugu. Dugu immediately turned her head away in annoyance. Although she was annoyed, she didn't seem to be unwilling. Ning Fan sighed slightly. This girl seemed to have feelings for him. Trouble. But this trouble couldn't be avoided. Because Ning Fan noticed that there was an illusory sword chi mark on the back of his hand. On Dugu's hand, there was also a mark slowly emerging. As soon as this mark appeared, Ning Fan and Dugu felt a strange connection in their minds, as if there was an invisible thread that tied the two of them together. He looked at the sword mark on the back of his hand and looked at the old monster for confirmation. The old monster immediately burst into laughter. This is the one-heart sword mark. With this mark, this little girl can only be your wife for the rest of her life. Little Ning, you have made a fortune. The old monster's words made Dugu feel even more humiliated. She vented her resentment on the ice and snow on the ground. Han Yuanji, you are not a thing. Little Devil Ning, you are not a human. You are not a human. As for those arrogant sword cultivators, their faces looked bitter as if their parents had died. It's over. It's over. The one-heart sword mark has been produced. Even if Dugu returned to the sword world, she would never be able to marry the grandson of the divine emperor of the sword world. Alright, Commander Qin, bring your men to rest first. I have something to say to my disciple. I don't want you to hear it. The fair-skinned young man sighed. There were 3 reasons why the old monster decided to go to the sword world. The first reason was for Ning Fan's safety. If he returned to the sword world, Moksha Emperor might not attack him. After all, with Moksha Emperor's arrogant personality, he would probably disdain to cross worlds to kill a mere Ning Fan. The second reason was because of Dugu. Dugu was in the form of a soul, like a female ghost. However, she was not killed by anyone. When she left the sword world, she was in the form of a soul, and her corporeal body remained in the sword world. This soul wasn't an ordinary soul, but a sword soul. It was a form of soul that only a few cultivators in the sword world were able to condense, and it was extremely strange to be able to utilize all of one's strength with just the body of a soul. However, there was still a time limit for the sword soul to leave the body. Most of the time, it would not exceed 100 years. Otherwise, it would be difficult for the sword soul to return to the body after a long period of time. It had been many years since Dugu's soul left the sword world. It was time for him to return. As for the third reason, it was because of the woman within the Sea of Fire. In the Sea of Fire under 7 Apricot City, the old monster, Ning Fan, and Dugu each had their own thoughts as they stood outside of the Sea of Fire, looking at the fire coffin in the center. In the fire coffin, a woman who looked similar to Dugu was in a deep slumber. Ning Fan's eyes only took a glance at the lady and immediately shifted away, as if looking at her one more time was blasphemy. She is Xiao Mei. Take a look at her, is she dead or alive? The old monster suddenly pointed out something and asked Ning Fan. The old monster deliberately brought Ning Fan here. Ning Fan naturally guessed that this woman was the author of the 7 Apricot transcript. She was Dugu's elder sister and the old monster's sweetheart. The biggest reason why the old monster accepted Ning Fan as his disciple was because of this woman. Ning Fan's eyes stared at the fire coffin and was secretly shocked. Putting aside the divine ability, the grade of this coffin was not any weaker than the Yin Yang Locket. Profound Yin World Treasure, Yin Yang Locket Pure Yang World Treasure, Heaven Evasion Coffin. This coffin emitted a trace of heaven-deceiving power, which made the woman's body undefeatable. The condition of this woman was extremely strange. It was as if she had lost all of her vitality, like a dead person. Once she left the fire coffin, she would immediately be buried in samsara. However, it wasn't accurate to say that this woman was dead. An extremely obscure trace of vitality was preserved under the heaven-deceiving power of the fire coffin. There seemed to be an unresolvable cold force in this woman's body. It was obviously ice, but it seemed to be burning inside the woman's body. That force had destroyed all of the woman's immortal veins. Otherwise, without this strange ice force, Ning Fan had several ways to save this woman. This ice force was too troublesome. Even a void fragmentation cultivator wouldn't dare to touch it. However, for some unknown reason, Ning Fan's Yin Yang Locket gently resonated with it. Moreover, there was a trace of qi that was extremely similar to Ning Fan's on this woman's body, causing Ning Fan's eyes to be slightly startled. This is Yin Yang Evil Vein. That's right, Little Mei, and you have the same kind of evil vein. If there's anyone in this world who can save Little Mei, it's you. The old monster's words were suddenly stuck in his throat. His following words were somewhat hesitant. Little Ning, this old man has a way to save Little Mei, but the premise is that you have to break through to the void fragmentation realm. By then, even if you save Little Mei, I'm afraid that you will be severely injured. You can see that the ice force is too terrifying. Even if I recover all of my strength, I can only suppress it. Are you willing to help me save her? Ning Fan closed his eyes slightly. He also saw a trace of nervousness, struggle, and contradiction in Dugu's expression. It was as if Dugu wanted her sister to resurrect, but was also worried that Ning Fan would be injured while saving her. When he opened his eyes again, Ning Fan only smiled faintly. If saving her is just a serious injury, it's only a small matter. Wait until I break through to the void fragmentation realm, I will definitely save her. But, do you really want to return to the sword world? Yes, we must return. Little May's father seems to have a way to nourish little May's body and soul. In this way, the chances of her resurrection will be greater. Master, can I ask a question? How did this woman get so seriously injured? You can see it? This ice force is completely opposite to the power of my black evil sect. The black evil sect respects fire, and this ice force is very similar to the black evil sect. Ning Fan closed his eyes and pondered. He didn't hesitate to save her, but he was thinking about a question. He could see a trace of strangeness in this ice force. And the cause of this woman's injury couldn't help but arouse his attention. Who was it that dared to injure this woman to such an extent despite knowing that she was the daughter of a great figure in the sword world? It couldn't be Moksha Emperor. If it was Moksha Emperor, the old devil would have torn his skin off and this woman's father would have crossed the boundary to fight Moksha Emperor to the death. Speaking of which, Moksha Emperor must have betrayed the old devil when the old devil was still a true immortal. At that time, the old devil's strength was far beyond Moksha Emperor's, and Moksha Emperor wasn't even a void fragmentation expert. He couldn't even hurt the old devil's finger with just the absolute een poison. The absolute een poison of the old devil must have been secretly planted in him after his cultivation base was greatly damaged. Then, could it be that the person who injured this woman was an enemy of the old devil when he was a true immortal? So, that person was so powerful that the sword world didn't seem to care about this matter? When Moksha Emperor betrayed the old devil, there might be someone who instigated and supported him. Was that person the culprit who injured the old devil and this woman? Who was that person? Bratning, do you know that my black evil sect wasn't called this in the past? At first, it was a sect that belonged to the Four Devil sect. Later on, it split into two sections. One was the black evil sect, and the other was the white evil sect, and the other was the ice god. Bratning, remember this. If you have the chance to ascend to the four-heaven immortal world in the future, you must never reveal your identity as the sect master of the black evil sect. Above the four-heaven, there is this old man's mortal enemy. His name is White Evil. At this moment, the old devil's eyes were filled with murderous intent. The hatred in his eyes seemed to want to tear the sky apart. Black Evil, White Evil. Chapter 144. Duga had to leave after all. Otherwise, his sword soul would be separated from his body for too long. The sky was dark and the snow was deep. Amidst the falling snowflakes, Ning Fan stood outside the courtyard of the Sea Fan Palace where he used to stay. He looked at the plum tree, the green stone and the grave. Feeling a little strange, he raised his hand and with a thought, a one-heart sword seal appeared on the back of his hand, flickering with a faint sword light. The one-heart sword seal was the seal of vow in the sword world. The man and woman who were planted with this seal would forever be united in their hearts and would never abandon each other. Ning Fan didn't mind being planted with this seal because he didn't make any heart devil oath. However, little Dugu would be in trouble. In this life, she could only marry Ning Fan. If she were to marry any other man, she would die from the destruction of the seal. I said, Miss Dugu, shouldn't we have a good talk? Since the one-heart sword seal has been planted, you are already my wife. Nonsense. Little demon Ning. Who's your wife? Also, my name is Dugu, not Dugu. Little Dugu's angry and embarrassed voice came from the grave, but when she mentioned her surname, her voice suddenly stopped. The women of the sword world did not have surnames. If they married, they would inherit their husband's surname in the future. For example, Dugu's elder sister, Xiao Mei. Her name was only Mei, and after she and the old monster pledged to marry, Xiao Mei called herself Han Mei. Cold plum blooming in the snow. She liked this name. As for Dugu, if she married Ning Fan, perhaps she would be called Ning Dugu in the future? The women of the sword realm would follow their husbands after they got married. If they didn't have a husband, they wouldn't have a surname for the rest of their lives. The ancestor of the sword realm was a woman. She lived her whole life in solitude and was not allowed to have deep feelings. Even when she died, she didn't have a surname, white bones like a mountain, forgetting her surname. It was referring to that woman. At this moment, the topic subtly shifted to Dugu's surname. Ning Fan unconsciously asked with great surprise. If your surname is not Dugu, then what's your surname? What's your family's surname? My surname is Ling, but my surname isn't Ling. My father didn't allow it. This is the tradition of the sword world. Dugu seemed to be rather dissatisfied. If that's the case, then when you marry me in the future, you can have whatever surname you want. Ling is fine too, Piggy or Doggy is fine too. It's up to you, okay? Ning Fan's teased. Bah, why should I marry you? Little demon Ning, I'm telling you, stay as far away from me as possible. Does that so? Let's get down to business. The one heart sword seal was obviously little Dugu's method to get rid of the engagement in the sword world. Ning Fan, of course, would not be shameless enough to use a sword seal to force little Dugu to marry him. His teasing was just to ease the awkward atmosphere between the two. More importantly, he had something to ask of her. What business do you have that you would tell me? In the grave, Dugu Wei was surprised. Master has followed you to the sword world. Please help me take care of him. Don't let him be harmed by others. This is my request. In return, if you have any trouble in the future regarding your marriage, you can let me know. I will definitely go to the sword world and help you solve your problems. However, even if I help you, I might only have the time after 100 years. This was probably the first time Ning Fan treated little Dugu seriously. His gaze made little Dugu's heart tremble. She blushed and thought to herself. Ning Fan actually begged her. This was really strange. Little Dugu naturally heaved a sigh of relief when she heard that Ning Fan was willing to help her by acting as her fiancé and solving the problem of the engagement. But at the same time, she didn't even realize that she was a little disappointed. If it wasn't because he wanted to help her, but because he liked her, how great would that be? Father would never allow it. A wisp of her fragrant soul gently floated out of the grave and stood under the plum tree. Her cold eyes revealed a faint smile. If you help me, I will naturally help you. Although I don't like Han Yuanji, he is indeed deeply in love with Sister. If Sister could wake up one day, she probably wouldn't want to see Han Yuanji getting injured or killed. With me around, no one in the sword world would dare to touch Han Yuanji. Given Han Yuanji's identity as the Deacon of the Four Seas, even Divine Emperor experts wouldn't dare to touch him easily. The only thing we have to pay attention to is the assassination in the Devil World. I will ask Father to pay attention to this matter. Little Dugu didn't explain to Ning Fan what the Deacon of the Four Seas was, but it didn't hinder Ning Fan's understanding. It seemed like the old monster had another identity in the four heavens other than the sect master of the Black Evil sect. This identity was something that even the Divine Emperor of the Rain World would have to treat courteously. The position of Deacon in the four heavens might not be high, but this identity was enough for the old monster to not be plotted against in the mortal world. Ning Fan's eyes were filled with gratitude as they fell on little Dugu's face. He carefully looked at the cold and lonely girl in front of him. Regardless of whether it was fake or real, in terms of status, this woman was his wife. She was like a fairy in a painting, but a boorish man like him had interacted with her. But facing such a peerless fairy, he no longer blushed and lost his composure. He still remembered that when he was still in Haining when he was young, he accidentally saw a young lady of the main family bathing in the lake. Because the young lady was too beautiful, he exclaimed and lost his composure. Although the young lady did not blame him, many young masters of the main family had secretly blamed him for peeking at the beautiful young lady. It had changed. Ning Fan's fate had changed, and so had his heart. He no longer had the feelings of a young man. The scenes of slaughter and bloody battles had made his heart old and calm after experiencing the Min Luo fruit's 50 years of dream. His peeping made little Dugu's cold face suddenly embarrassed. She turned her eyes away and secretly blamed Ning Fan for his frivolous gaze. He clasped his fists and suddenly bowed to little Dugu. Thank you. Your sword chi has saved me several times, and now you have promised to protect my master. I Ning Fan owe you 2 favors. Is that so? Little Dugu suddenly turned her back and pursed her lips as if she was hesitating. When she turned back again, she took out an ancient scroll from her bosom. For you, she said lightly, but there was a hint of nervousness in her eyes, causing her to immediately add. I'm just lending it to you, not giving it to you, don't think too much. Ning Fan took the ancient scroll. There was a trace of warmth and a wisp of virgin fragrance on it. But what he cared about the most wasn't the fragrance, but the content of the ancient scroll. He gently flipped through a few pages of the ancient scroll, but immediately showed a shocked expression. He immediately closed the scroll and returned it to little Dugu. I can't accept such a great gift. I said I'm just lending it to you, you don't have to tell others. I obtained this ancient scroll by chance during the Sword Ancestors trial. Except for me, not even my father has seen it before. I'm giving it to you, so just read it. What are you talking about? Little Dugu seemed to be angry. She didn't know why, but seeing Ning Fan treating her like an outsider, she was very angry for no reason. She stomped her feet and dispersed her soul, returning to the grave. Go, 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 I don't want to see you, she ordered. Holding the ancient scroll, Ning Fan looked at the grave with a sigh. Under little Dugu's expulsion, he could only remain silent. That ancient scroll was a great gift. Sword Finger was said to be one of the inherited secret techniques of the sword ancestor. The key to this technique was to refine the cultivator's body as a sword. Eventually, the cultivator would reach the realm where the body was the sword. The cultivator wouldn't hold the sword with his hand, but he would use his body to slash the enemy. This was the ancient fiend god body refining technique, a lost divine ability of the immemorial era. But somehow, it was obtained by little Dugu. This girl was really lucky. The sword physique technique was divided into finger sword, bone of sword, eye of sword, heart of sword, and more than 10 other volumes. Among them, the finger sword volume recorded the ability to cultivate the finger as a sword. A cultivator had 10 fingers. If the 10 fingers were turned into a sword, the cultivator could slay a fiend god with a flick of the finger. This technique was incomplete. Not to mention the pain and difficulty of refining the finger into a sword, the most important thing was to use the earth vein and spirit vein to temper the finger energy. Ning Fan still remembered the day when Moksha Emperor's 10,000 zhang white skeleton body could destroy the heaven and earth with a single finger. The power of the fiend god body refining technique would become more and more terrifying as the body became stronger. Ning Fan had the first realm of the silver bone realm, but the body refining technique he knew was only the 6-meter body, which was a common technique. He had yet to cultivate the colossal bone secret art. Even if he did cultivate it, the divine ability would most likely not be as powerful as the sword finger. From little Dugu's words, he could vaguely tell that this girl obtained this technique from the Sword Ancestors trial. Ning Fan didn't know what the Sword Ancestors trial was, but he could imagine that it must be one of the grandest trials in the sword world. There was even a high possibility that one could obtain the inheritance of the sword ancestor by chance, which would then be sought after by all the old monsters. If the old monsters of the sword world were to find out about the finger sword technique that he had obtained, they would definitely covet it. Little Dugu gave such a precious thing to him so easily. This made Ning Fan's heart feel extremely complicated. This girl had feelings for him. If he couldn't even see this, he would have lived in vain. If I don't die after 100 years, I will definitely go to the sword world. After Ning Fan finished his words, a light flashed and disappeared in the snowstorm. In the grave, little Dugu, who heard Ning Fan's words, was silent for a long time. Suddenly, she let out a sweet laugh. Humph! Little devil Ning, at least you still have a conscience. If you didn't come, I would have hated you for the rest of my life. 3 days later, Ning Fan watched little Dugu and the group of cultivators leave on their swords. The old monster left in a carefree manner. He laughed heartily, but he was carefully guarding his storage pouch. Inside the bag of holding was a coffin that was the most important item to him, a coffin made of fire. Many cultivators of Yu country heard the news and came to watch this rare scene. Some recognized the old monster, some recognized the cultivators of the sword world, and some old monsters recognized little Dugu, the ruthless girl who single-handedly defeated all the cultivators of Yu country dozens of years ago. Each of them kept quiet out of fear. They secretly wondered how Han Yuanji got involved with the big shots of the sword world. Those who were observant could faintly see the abnormality of the old monster's cultivation. But now, the old monster's disciple, Ning Fan, was like the sun in the sky of Yu country. Only a fool would go investigate the old monster's background outside of 7 Apricot City. In the snowstorm, 4 harmonious spirit experts followed behind Ning Fan. They watched the old monster until he could no longer be seen. The 4 patriarchs felt empty without the old monster. Not long after, Ning Fan would also leave Yu country. Without the noisy old monster, 7 Apricot City seemed to have become an empty city. Young Lord, from today onwards, where should our 7 Apricot City go? Mo Rushue bowed and respectfully asked. The 4 patriarchs have followed Master and worked hard for half of your lives. Today, isn't it a chance to let go of your worldly affairs and concentrate on cultivation? These dawn, merit laws, cultivation experiences, and pill refinement experiences were prepared by me in 3 days. Perhaps it was a bit rushed, but it should be quite helpful for everyone. After handing over a bulging storage pouch to Mo Rushue, Ning Fan's eyes swept over 7 Apricot City. He faintly smiled and turned to leave. After he left, the 4 patriarchs opened their storage pouches and revealed a shocked expression. Rising Spirit Dan. Consolidating Spirit Dan. There were even many Dawn for breaking through to the Gold Core realm. Among them, the highest rank Dawn had even reached 4th Revolution. The cultivation experience that Ning Fan left behind explained everything from the harmonious spirit realm all the way to the nascent soul realm. With such a profound understanding, every step was explained in detail. With this experience, the 4 of them would be able to avoid countless detours in their cultivation. The 4 of them originally did not have weak innate talents, but they used their minds on refining, formations, cloud refinement, and spirit augmentation. With these cultivation experiences in Dawn, it was absolutely not difficult for the 4 of them to reach the peak of harmonious spirit realm within 10 years. Moreover, these experiences made it not a problem for them to form their gold core. If they had the chance, they might even have a chance to form their nascent soul in this lifetime. This storage pouch was just a small token from Ning Fan, but it was truly a big gift. What made the 4 patriarchs even more concerned was that Ning Fan could take out so many big gifts with a wave of his hand. What was his true cultivation realm? What was the height of his pill refinement technique? Unfathomable! The 4 patriarchs exclaimed in unison. After the 4 of them scanned the jade slip with their spirit sense, it suddenly shattered into ashes. This jade slip was set with a special formation. When the 4 of them scanned it with their spirit sense, it would self-destruct. Ning Fan seemed to be worried that these cultivation experiences would attract the attention of some gold core old devils and bring unnecessary trouble to 7 Apricot City. Therefore, he self-destructed the jade slip after everyone scanned it. This made the 4 patriarchs sigh again. Young Lord's wisdom is also very high. Such an outstanding person, even in the endless sea which was known as the grave of cultivators, he would still stir up a storm. Thank you, young lord. With us here, 7 Apricot City will be safe for a long time. The voices of the 4 were either loud or low, but they used enough magical power to resound through the clouds. A few hundred li away, Ning Fan withdrew his spirit sense and smiled. This is good. Chapter 145. The spiritual qi in this flat cloud mountain was thin. It wasn't suitable for cultivation. Moreover, there wasn't a single cultivation clan, cultivation city, or sect within 1,000 miles radius. There were only a few mortal towns. Usually, there wasn't even a shadow of a cultivator in this place. It wasn't easy to have a paradise in a low-grade cultivation country like Yu country. More than a year ago, a young man in black clothes came to Ping'an village and stayed there. A year later, that young man named Ninggu had grown into a young man and was living a peaceful life here. He would work at sunrise and rest at sunset. He made a living by hunting. His hunting technique was even better than some of the hunters who had lived for generations in Ping'an village. Once upon a time, a tiger spirit accidentally entered Peace Village. That tiger spirit somehow managed to cultivate a trace of demon qi, which gave him extraordinary strength and ferocity. He would often enter the village during the day and eat raw pigs and cows. He would even kill the villagers. A few hunters from the village tried to hunt this tiger, but all of them died tragically. Many villagers who had lived here for generations began to think about leaving the village. Right at this moment, that lawless tiger spirit was killed by a single arrow from Ninggu, who had an ordinary appearance. The tiger demon had thick skin and was protected by demonic chi. How could a mortal's bow and arrow hurt it? However, Ninggu had forcefully shot an arrow through the middle of the tiger's forehead and pierced through its tail, killing the tiger. The power of this arrow was too terrifying. The villagers were saved, and Ninggu's name resounded throughout the small village. It had even caused the village chief's daughter to secretly fall in love with him. Unfortunately, Ninggu didn't like to hunt. He only hunted for food. He didn't like to see blood and kill. It was as if he had a shadow in his heart. What he loved the most was to grow camellia flowers. Each of them bloomed under the bamboo fence, taking root and sprouting, bringing along his longing. This year he still couldn't remember Ning Fan. His longing was only placed on the camellia flowers. In the courtyard, he looked at the camellia flowers that were swaying in the wind. His cold eyes gradually softened. The camellia was called sea pomegranate by the villagers. The camellia that Ninggu grew was filled with spiritual chi. Some kind-hearted villagers helped Ninggu to sell the excess camellias to the big cities outside the mountain. Gradually, Ninggu relied on growing and selling flowers to earn money. Finally, he didn't need to hunt anymore. It would be best if he didn't have to kill her. The autumn wind blew. Ninggu's black clothes were a little thin. Outside the fence, a young girl's voice with a local accent was heard softly. Ninggu, the weather is cold. Father asked me to bring you this wolf fur coat to wear. Outside the fence, a simple girl dressed like a mountain person pushed open the wooden door. She was holding a thick silver wolf fur coat. This fur robe was made of pure wolf fur, without a single strand of impurities. Even if it was sold in a big city, it could be sold for a lot of money. However, this woman used her father's name to give it to Ninggu. This woman was the daughter of the village chief, and her name was Ran. She was not extremely beautiful, but she was simple and clean, making it hard for people to forget her face after seeing it. This woman had liked Ninggu for a very long time. She had taken the risk to hunt for the wolf fur coat in the deep mountains. Then she had sewn it with thread and thread. The wolf fur coat was also a homophone. It contained a trace of the young girl's ignorant thoughts. Wolf fur coat, Lang Jun begs, leisurely clothes, just a glance from Lang Jun knows. Why are you here again? Ninggu frowned slightly. He did not dare to use his cultivation base, but his level 10 vein opening realm cultivation base was still there after all. It was impossible for him to be afraid of the cold weather like a mortal. He did not need this wolf fur coat. Such a big temper at such a young age. I'm making clothes for you out of goodwill. The young girl seemed to be wronged. I don't need your goodwill. Ninggu's temper was quite stubborn. You're just a little better at shooting. I want to compete with you. The young girl did not care. She placed the wolf fur coat on the wooden table in the courtyard and took off the carving bow on her back. You can't win against me. Ninggu's temper flared, and he took off the longbow on the wall. Therefore, the mountain people who were passing by outside the fence started to laugh. Ninggu and Ran are quarreling again. Their relationship is so good. But Ran will definitely cry in anger later. Her shooting skill is not as good as Ninggu's. The mountain people's gossip did not affect Ninggu's mind at all, but it made the young girl feel ashamed and angry. However, she felt sweet in her heart. In the courtyard, there was a rock with many holes on it. The young girl drew her bow and knocked an arrow. The arrow hit the tip of the rock and went half an inch into the rock. This young girl's shooting skill was very accurate and her strength was not weak. However, before she could feel proud, Ninggu indifferently knocked an arrow. The arrow split the young girl's arrow into two halves. Without losing any momentum, the entire arrow went into the rock. Outside the fence, there was a burst of cheers, and the young girl cried and left. Ninggu, you bully! Bully! I won't be friends with you anymore. As for Ninggu, he kept his bow and arrow indifferently like a piece of wood. He did not chase after the young girl. On the peak of Pingyun Mountain, a young man in white clothes and black cloak stood amidst the clouds and wind. When he withdrew his spirit sense, he had already understood everything that happened in Pingyun village. Ninggu was living a good life. His complexion seemed to have recovered quite well after a year of recuperation. What made Ning Fan the happiest was that this silly boy actually had a girl who admired him. However, the only thing that bothered Ning Fan was that this Ninggu was like a piece of wood. Not only did he not know how to coax girls, but his words and actions were also disgusting to girls. However, that girl still did not dislike Ninggu until now. It was really rare. And Ran, this name is very good. It's better than Ninggu. You need to live a peaceful life. This kind of life is what you yearn for. The bloody shadow of cultivation is not suitable for you. Ning Fan's eyes revealed an inexplicable expression. With a flash of light, he disappeared from the peak of the mountain. In the village head's house, and Ran cried all the way home. When she reached home, she was still reprimanded by her father. "Stinky girl, you gave away a wolf fur coat for no reason. Do you know how much this wolf fur coat can be sold in Ping City? A girl's heart is always with an outsider. This is really, really infuriating. Get the wolf fur coat back for me later." "So what if you gave it away? I was the one who hunted it anyway. It's none of your business." And Ran twisted her head and retorted. Her father was the village head. Usually, all the villagers were polite to him. Who would dare to talk back to him? Even Ran did not dare to talk back to her father. Perhaps she was in a hurry today, so she actually said something wrong. Immediately, her father was enraged. His temper was usually fierce. In a moment of desperation, he even slapped the girl. The village head immediately regretted his action. His strength was equivalent to 1,000 jin. He could even fight a tiger or a bear. If this slap landed on his daughter's face, he was afraid that her petite body would not be able to withstand it. However, once the slap landed, it was not easy to retract it. But at this moment, a breeze blew past. The palm force that was strong enough to repel a tiger or a leopard was blocked by that breeze. The palm force vanished without a trace. At the same time, an indifferent voice was heard from outside the house. Immediately, a young man in white clothes and black cloak entered the house. This young man was thin and his face was pale. It was obvious that his chi and blood were weak. However, when the village head met his gaze, he immediately broke out in cold sweat. He had hunted countless tigers and leopards in his life. He had seen the cold light in the eyes of countless wild beasts. However, he had never seen a wild beast's gaze that was more terrifying than this young man in front of him. Under this gaze, his whole body trembled. He could not control himself. If this young man was a mortal, he would definitely be an expert who could fight against 100 people. If he was an immortal, he would definitely be a devil who killed like a mountain. The village head could not see through the young man, but with just a glance, he knew that this young man must not be provoked. This was the intuition that he had cultivated through countless life and death situations. This feeling only rose in the village head's heart, but it did not affect the girl at all. The girl was unaware of it. She secretly opened her eyes and was surprised to find that her father did not hit her. She secretly heaved a sigh of relief. She looked at the young man at the door with a strange feeling in her heart. Who was this young man? Why did he directly enter her house? Did this young man not know that her father hated rude people the most? What he hated the most was for a villager to enter his house without greeting him. The young man smiled faintly and retracted his pressure. Then, something that surprised the girl immediately played out. Not only did her father not blame the young man for being rude, on the contrary, for the first time in her life, her father put away the cold expression on his face and squeezed out an ugly smile. "Sir, are you here to rest in our village?" The girl could see the respectful attitude of the village head. She was extremely surprised. Could it be that this inconspicuous young man in front of her was a big shot? That was why her father, who had seen a little of the world, was so afraid of him? However, no matter how the girl looked at him, She could not see which part of the young man in front of her was different from the others. It seemed that his body was extremely weak and he was not as strong as her. Village head, you don't have to be so polite. I have heard every word that you said just now. I am Ninggu's elder brother. Since that wolf fur coat was given to my younger brother, it is impossible for me to take it back. As for me, I don't have any money to compensate for that wolf fur coat. The young man's words carried a smile. However, when the smile fell into the village head's eyes, it made him sweat even more. The smile on his face also became wider. Good heavens, so this young man is Ninggu's elder brother. It seems that he is a few times more powerful than Ninggu. That Ninggu was able to kill the tiger demon with a single arrow. It was already extremely impressive. But now Ninggu's elder brother is an even more powerful and ruthless person. Moreover, the faint smell of blood on the young man's body made the village head complain incessantly in his heart. There was no doubt that this young man was a devil who killed people like flies. No matter if he was an immortal or a mortal, he was not someone that the village head could afford to offend. Wolf fur coat. If the village head knew that Ninggu had such a ruthless elder brother, he would definitely not reprimand his daughter. He would also not dare to have the slightest thought of taking back the wolf fur coat. As for the fact that he was stopped by the young man when he was teaching his daughter a lesson, the village head did not dare to blame the young man for being a busybody. As the village head, he finally knew how to be a tactful person. He could act like a tyrant in front of the simple villagers. However, if he dared to be ruthless in front of the young man in front of him, there would be endless troubles. Hee. So this little brother is Ninggu's elder brother. Good. The village head smiled. However, even he himself did not understand what was the meaning of his praise and what was so good about it. On the contrary, the young lady's bright eyes flashed. Her gaze towards the young man suddenly became gentle. So this person is Ninggu's elder brother. Ninggu, that stupid blockhead, did not give me any face no matter how I tried to please him. His elder brother is quite easygoing. Since he is Ninggu's elder brother, I naturally have to be more polite. Big brother Ning, do you want to take a rest in my humble house? I will go and boil some water and make some tea for you. The young lady's enthusiasm made the village head speechless. The person in front of him is a malefic star. I can't even invite him away, but you still want him to stay. Stupid daughter, stupid daughter, stupid daughter. The young man smiled faintly as if he could see the fear in the village head. He shook his head and rejected the young lady's kindness. There is no need to trouble yourself. I'm not thirsty. Your daughter, is her name Ran? The young man's eyes flashed as if he had made a decision. Yes, this name was given by her mother. She is uncultured. It is not a good name, not a good name. The village head smiled bitterly. No, this name is very good. Yes, this name does not look good. In fact, it is very good, very good. The village head did not know what he was saying anymore. In short, whatever the young man said was right. And Ran, Ninggu. They are a good match, aren't they? The young man seemed to be muttering to himself. When the village head heard this, it was as if he was struck by lightning. He was stunned. It's over. Is this young devil here to propose marriage? Or is he going to snatch my daughter and make her his younger brother's wife? This is not good. Isn't it extremely dangerous for my daughter to be the wife of the devil's younger brother? Although he was snobbish, showy, and petty, he really cared about his daughter. Naturally, he was not willing to push his daughter into the fire pit. However, in front of the young man, he could not muster up the courage to say no. At this juncture, the young lady put down the firewood and entered the house. Her eyes were shining brightly. Big brother Ning, do you really think that Ninggu and I are a good match? Naturally, she could hear the implied meaning in the young man's words. Yes, you are a good match. If I ask you to be Ninggu's wife, are you willing? The young man smiled. I am willing. The young lady said happily. However, she immediately sighed faintly, but he is not willing, no. Actually, Ninggu also likes you. According to my understanding of him, he will not even look at something that he does not like. He just does not know how to make you happy. Since he was young, he did not know how to speak. He did not know how to make people like him. He is always stirring up trouble. The young man's eyes flashed with reminiscence. After that, he patted his storage bag and took out a crystal hairpin and a jade pill bottle. The village head had never seen a storage bag before. When he saw the young man take out two items like magic, his face was immediately filled with astonishment. This young man was indeed an immortal. Other than immortals, who else could make treasures appear out of nowhere? The crystal hairpin was sparkling and translucent. The village head had never seen such a precious accessory in his life. As for the pill bottle, a trace of fragrance floated out. When the village head smelled it, his spirit was immediately lifted. How could he not guess that the bottle contained an immortal pill? Even the jade bottle that contained the immortal pill could be sold for thousands of silver in the mortal world. Treasures, all of them were treasures. This jade hairpin is for you. Wear it and you will be safe and sound for the rest of your life. This pill is called Fortune Pill. If an ordinary person consumes one, their lifespan will be extended by 10 years. They will not suffer from any illness or disaster. This is for you. You can give it to whoever you want. You don't have to worry about anyone stealing these treasures. Whoever dares to steal them will definitely die. The young man's eyes flashed. His sword chi moved and several sword senses flashed and entered the crystal hairpin. These gifts are your reward for your kindness to Ninggu. I will be leaving for a period of time. Please take good care of Ninggu, don't worry. I will take good care of him, even if he doesn't like me. The young lady said with determination in her eyes. That's good. The young man smiled faintly. He seemed to be very satisfied with the young lady's answer. His eyes seemed to have sensed something as he looked outside the house. After that, he gave the young lady an inexplicable smile. He is here. He really cares about you. Immediately, a black light flashed around the young man. The yuan chi of heaven and earth fluctuated and he disappeared in front of the two of them. The young lady was finally dumbfounded. Could it be that Ninggu's big brother was not an ordinary person but an immortal? As for her father, he finally heaved a long sigh of relief after the young man left. Tired, too tired. Just by staying in front of the young man, the village chief felt as if he had lost half of his life. The village chief's eyes immediately lit up when he recalled the treasures that the young man had given him. He did not know much about the crystal hairpin. However, the pill might be just like what the young man had said. Eating one pill could increase one's lifespan by 10 years. Lifespan was the most important thing for ordinary people. Even the emperor of the mortal world could not escape death. A single pill could increase one's lifespan by 10 years. This was a priceless treasure. However, after receiving these gifts, the village chief sighed in his heart. These gifts were too precious. It was enough to be used as a return gift for the wolf fur coat. It was even enough to be used as a betrothal gift from Ninggu to Inran. The young man did not give the village chief any leeway to reject the gifts. Although the village chief did not want to reject the gifts himself, it seemed like he could no longer get involved in the matter between Ninggu and Inran. He would just let his daughter do whatever she wanted. The young girl was holding the crystal hairpin and the pill bottle in her hands. While she was in a daze, Ninggu's familiar voice came from outside the door. It was still indifferent, but there was a trace of concern in it. He pushed the door open and barged into the house. Ninggu did not even look at the village chief. His cold eyes slightly relaxed when he saw that Inran was safe and sound. Are you all right? He heaved a sigh of relief. What can happen to me? Could it be that you are concerned about me? Inran burst out laughing. Her heart was filled with sweetness. Ninggu's expression suddenly turned gloomy. He almost flicked his sleeves and left. He did not like to see the young girl's proud look. However, he was even more unwilling to see something happen to the young girl. The aura of that cultivator just now was too strong. What exactly happened? Just when he was about to leave, his gaze fell on the jade hairpin and the pill bottle in Inran's arms. The jade hairpin was actually a high-grade magical treasure. Moreover, it contained several extremely powerful spirit senses. Each of them seemed to be able to easily kill a gold-core old monster. As for the pill bottle, the pill fragrance that was emitted was stronger than a second revolution pill. Third revolution pill. It was even the peak quality of the third revolution pill. What caught Ninggu's attention the most was the familiar aura on the jade hairpin and the pill bottle. This aura was very familiar to him. However, he could not recall it at all. It could only stir up waves of emotions in his heart. This was given to me by your big brother. This was the first time the young girl saw Ninggu lose his composure. She showed off the treasures in her arms proudly. Let me have a look? Ninggu said anxiously. No. Unless you catch me. The young girl winked cunningly and slipped out of the house. As for Ninggu, he was stubborn. He chased after her like a wisp of smoke. If you don't want to let me have a look, I will naturally be able to have a look if I catch you. The young boy and the young girl started to chase each other in the mountain village. When this scene fell into the eyes of the elders, it turned into a knowing smile. Chapter 146. The rain world had a lot of rain, so it was normal for you country to have rain. 2 years ago, the Joyful Union sect was established here. However, this sect was annihilated by the Yu Kingdom's master apothecary Han Yuanji in a single night. This was the place where the old monster's unlucky disciple died tragically and also the place where the old monster and Ning Fan's met. This was the place where Ning Fan plucked the evil woman's energy and also the place where he first met Jihe. It was the beginning and the end. Since the annihilation of the Joyful Union sect, this place was only left with ruins. The spirit veins at the bottom of the mountain were also broken, and spiritual energy no longer existed. No more cultivators established a sect. Now, only the woodcutter would occasionally go up the mountain to chop firewood. Occasionally, there would be rumors spreading from the mountains. In the rain, a young man in white clothes and a black cloak stood at the peak of the mountain, listening to the song with his eyes closed. Memories spun in his mind. Before the raindrops could wet his robe, they strangely deviated from their trajectory and did not fall on the young man's body. The divine ability that caused the raindrops to deviate was called the divine intent of rain. Here I stray from my destiny, and so I am no longer myself. The rain deviates from its track, but it is still rain. Humans are inferior to the rain, too fickle. The young man opened his eyes, and a trace of vicissitude flashed across his eyes. The old devil had left, Duga had left, 7 Apricot City was cold. There was rain in the rain world, and the parting hatred mountain was also cold. Once the old devil left, Moksha Sovereign might not be a threat to him after 100 years. If he could find a place to hide, he could easily avoid the confrontation with Moksha Sovereign. Void fragmentation realm within 100 years. Difficult. Defeating Moksha Emperor within 100 years. Difficult. If I can escape, why not? Why didn't he escape? Why did he persist? Why did he desperately increase his strength? What exactly was the purpose of cultivating the devil path and the Tao? The heart devil in Ning Fan's heart gradually rose. If he does not eliminate this heart devil, he would never be able to form his core for the rest of his life. Moreover, he would be plagued by it for the rest of his life. Perhaps, I should listen to Master's words and give up the empty dream of attaining the void fragmentation realm within 100 years. I should give up on contending against Moksha Sovereign and live a peaceful life of 1,000 years at the void fragmentation realm. But Han Yetion injured Master. How can this enmity be settled just like that? All of a sudden, Ning Fan's heart devil was forcefully suppressed. He opened his eyes abruptly. All of a sudden, the rain on the entire Lihen mountain was bestowed with a trace of strange charm. It actually stopped in midair. It did not fall or move. It was as if it was suspended in midair. The world seemed to have stopped moving. This was because the young man's divine will of rain had been bestowed with a strand of concept, the heart of defying the heavens. This defying will cause the rain to reverse. This defying will cause the inner demons to be suppressed. This defying will was used by the young man as a fundamental method to slay his inner demons. It's still not enough. If I can use the divine intent of rain to make this drizzle roll back to the firmament, then the defying intent would be enough. At that time, even if I don't sever my emotions, I can still destroy the heart devil. The young man put away all of his emotions and took one last look at the ruins of the all-pleasure sect. After pondering for a moment, he teleported and disappeared in the drizzle. Once he left, the karma of the Joyful Union sect would be severed. The strange scene of the mountain rain stopping just now had already caused a few woodcutters who were chopping firewood in the mountains to tremble with fear. Oh my God, why did the rain suddenly stop just now? This is really seeing a ghost in broad daylight. This place is really evil. I better go home quickly. A day later, the rain stopped and a bright rainbow appeared in the sky. On the ruins of the Heaven Separation sect, a young man in white robe and black cloak appeared out of nowhere with a flash of black light. He didn't attract anyone's attention. The Heaven Separation sect was destroyed and the sect was completely destroyed. However, there were still many half-destroyed pills and magical treasures in the ruins, which attracted many cultivators to set up camp and search for treasures in the ruins. There were also many bandits lurking in the dark. Once they found any cultivator who found a good treasure in the ruins, they would most likely attack that cultivator to seize the treasure. Ning Fan appeared on the ruins. His spirit sense swept across 1,000 li and instantly understood everything that happened. Looking at the ruins, he slightly closed his eyes. He didn't come here to search for treasures, but to end the lingering thoughts in his heart. He closed his eyes for a long time. Above the sky, there was a misty rain intent. Immediately, the drizzle was like a cloud. The drizzle seemed to be guided by Ning Fan's divine intent. Ning Fan closed his eyes and murmured to himself. Kei Shenxi's divine intent of rain has a total of 3 intents. The first intent is the killing intent, the second is the battle intent, and the third is the defying intent. Only when these 3 intents are integrated can one obtain their own divine intent. I have the defying intent. Although it's not enough, I will be able to completely understand it in the future. I also have the killing intent. In the ruins of the Heaven Separation sect, my killing intent is unbearable. In Ning Fan's mind, he recalled the damage that Ning Gu suffered in the Heaven Separation sect and the bitterness of being unable to cultivate for the rest of his life. His heart was enveloped by a cold, murderous intent, and the murderous intent was still rising. The few vein-opening cultivators at the side obviously didn't know the terror of this young man. They had been searching for treasures for many days, but they only found some scrap metal. Naturally, they were annoyed. They weren't interested in Ning Fan, and they weren't even interested in the rain that fell from the sky. But they were suddenly very interested in the treasures that Ning Fan had. High-grade magical treasure? Or profound gold spirit equipment? Or a third revolution pill? Why is this compass flickering so violently? Among them, a man with a mustache was holding a treasure-seeking compass while looking at Ning Fan with fiery eyes. Naturally, they were rogue cultivators who came here to search for treasures. Some of them even occasionally did the shady business of bandits. The ruins of the Heaven Separation sect had been searched by many cultivators. There were very few magical treasures left, but Ning Fan in front of them seemed to be a big fat sheep. No one knew how many treasures he had on him to be able to cause the treasure-seeking compass to shake violently. The mustache man who had good eyesight could see the black ribbon and ancient beast wrist guards on Ning Fan's hair and wrists. Each of them was a profound gold spirit equipment and was very valuable. Ning Fan was indeed a fat sheep. Moreover, it seemed that this fat sheep was very young and his cultivation was most likely not high. Everyone couldn't see Ning Fan's cultivation, so they treated him as a young master with a low cultivation. They didn't know which family's young master dared to come to the Heaven Separation sect to admire the flowers and watch the rain. He really didn't know that there were many rogue cultivators and bandits here. Kill, the mustache man whispered to the 7th-level vein-opening man beside him. The man immediately revealed a hideous smile and rubbed his palms together as he approached Ning Fan. Killing Ning Fan, in the eyes of the man, was definitely not much harder than killing an ant. However, the closer he got to Ning Fan, the more he felt a sense of danger as if he was being stared at by a wild beast, causing his footsteps to gradually slow down. When he was 10 zhang away from Ning Fan, a killing intent similar to that of a wild beast caused his blood to surge. He was shocked to find that he couldn't even get half a step closer to Ning Fan. At this moment, no matter how stupid the man was, he could see that Ning Fan was not a young master or a fat sheep, but a hidden, peerless expert. The mustache man's face turned pale. When he saw Ning Fan's eyelids moving, he immediately shouted, "Brothers, run!" At this moment, Ning Fan opened his eyes. Within 100 zhang, the raindrops suddenly became as sharp as swords. Too late! Ning Fan's eyes turned cold. Within the curtain of rain, the mustache man and the others were drenched into sieves, their blood splashing all over the barren hill. Ning Fan did not use any magical power to kill these vein-opening rogue cultivators. He only fused the divine rain intent with his killing intent. That killing intent that could not harm anyone turned into a weapon and killed these rogue cultivators. Not enough. The killing intent in the divine rain intent was worlds apart from Kei Shenxi's. However, Ning Fan had indeed fused a second intent realm into the divine rain intent. Defy and kill. Kei Shenxi's third intent realm was battle intent. However, Ning Fan was different from Kei Shenxi. He cultivated the evil path not to dominate an area. He did not improve his strength to fight against the world. In essence, perhaps he was the same as Ning Gu and Jihe. He did not like killing, but he had no other choice. On top of the ruins, the other rogue cultivators immediately recognized Ning Fan's appearance. Revered Ning of Sinister Sparrow Sect. A ruthless person who could even kill Old Devil Purpleine. Why would such a person come to the ruins of Heaven Separation Sect? Is he here to search for treasures? Ning Fan did not answer these people's questions. He flashed and turned into an icy rainbow. All Pleasure Sect has Defy. Heaven Separation Sect has Killing. And Cold Moon Mountain has Desolation and Loneliness. I have obtained Hu Frengzi's cultivation pill and promised to protect Hu Clan. After Hu Clan's death, there should be no more unresolved karma in Yu country. Ning Fan's light gradually disappeared in the rain. The rain gradually stopped as well. One by one, the cultivators heaved a sigh of relief after Ning Fan left. Those who were observant were wondering what kind of terrifying technique Ning Fan used to kill those rogue cultivators with the rain. However, with their low cultivation, they were afraid that they would never be able to understand it in their lifetime. The only conclusion they could draw was that revered Ning of Sinister Sparrow was indeed a terrifying expert. The Cold Moon Mountain of Western Yu was once famous for its cold moon spring. Western Yu Hu clan was once prosperous because of their old ancestor, Hu Frengzi. But after Wang Yao's arrival, the elites of Hu clan were all killed. Their old ancestor even died after consuming a decaying corpse pill. The Hu clan declined and the Cold Moon Spring was taken away by a powerful figure. The cultivators of Hu clan didn't say who took away the Cold Moon Spring, but those who were observant found out that this matter was related to revered Ning of Sinister Sparrow. But now, Ning Fan was like the sun in midday in Yu country. Who would be blind enough to make things difficult for him just for a spirit spring? Following the decline of Hu clan, fewer people paid attention to them. Most of the clans that were close to Hu clan in the past had cut off their relationship with them. There were even some enemies who came to pick a fight with them. Even Purple Light Sect, which had always been on good terms with Hu clan, began to covet Hu clan. They even requested for Hu clan to merge with Purple Light Sect. Purple Light Sect suffered a great loss in the battle with Yu Devil Sect. Even their sect master was gravely injured. Now, they needed to annex some small clans to replenish their strength. In the hall of Hu clan, the higher-ups of Hu clan were discussing about Purple Light Sect. How can Purple Light Sect bully us like this? Clan Lord, why don't we ask revered Ning for help? An early harmonious spirit elder of Hu clan advised. Revered Ning, it's better not to trouble him with this matter. He has made an agreement with my ancestor to protect Hu clan 3 times. If we ask him for help for such a small matter. The black-robed young man, Hu Ming, had already become the clan lord of Hu clan. He shook his head helplessly at the elder's suggestion. Ning Fan had planted a mental seal on Hu family. Hu Ming didn't know Ning Fan's personality, so it was best not to provoke Ning Fan. If Ning Fan wasn't willing to help, he might activate the mental seal and kill all the cultivators of Hu clan in a fit of rage. Then, The last bloodline of Hu clan would be destroyed. If he could avoid asking for help, he would think of another way to fulfill Purple Light Sec's request. But at this moment, a faintly discernible voice that was mixed with spirit sense suddenly resounded in the clan hall from the cold moon mountain. Don't worry. I won't go back on my words. This time, I'll help your Hu clan. Hu Ming, quickly come to the cold moon mountain to see me. On the peak of the cold moon mountain, Ning Fan stood in front of an unmarked grave with his eyes closed. For the survival of his clan, Hu Fengzi's soul was dispersed and he would never enter samsara again. In exchange for Ning Fan's help 3 times, was it worth it? A trace of rain intent gradually rose around his body. There seemed to be Hu Fengzi's Tao on the cold moon mountain. That Tao was secretly compatible with Ning Fan's Tao. Was it worth it? Along the path of evil cultivation, he was trapped by love, burdened by gratitude and forced by revenge. Was it worth it? The pitter-patter of rain fell on the cold moon mountain. The sound of the rain carried a trace of lost emotion. Chapter 147. So what if it was worth it? So what if it wasn't? In the rain, Ning Fan's thoughts gradually became clear. He suddenly opened his eyes and stared at Hu Fengzi's grave. Perhaps it wasn't worth it, but if he was Hu Fengzi, he would do the same as Hu Fengzi, risking his life for a future. Rain was born from the sky and fell to the ground, nourishing the plants and nurturing the living beings. It was called rain, not water, not river, not lake or sea, because it had its own Tao. In terms of value, everything in this world must be worth it. Whether it's worth it or not, it varies from person to person. I have my own Tao. This Tao has the traces of Kei Shensi, Hu Fengzi and Master, but my Tao is different from them. There are countless raindrops in this world. I'm just one of them, but I'm the one and only. In the past, I was too obsessed with the idea of attaining the void fragmentation realm in 100 years. Imperceptibly, my impatience was like the wind that blew the raindrops off course, fueling the momentum of the heart devil. But now, I have 70% confidence to eliminate the heart devil. The third intent of condensing the divine intent of rain isn't battle, but loneliness. Loneliness is a kind of coldness, just like the moonlight on this mountain. At this moment, Ning Fan raised his head to look at the moon. The moonlight trembled and slightly tilted, merging with the rain. Immediately, the rain in the cold moon mountains suddenly became bone-chilling. The coldness wasn't the coldness of the skin, but the coldness of the heart. It was the coldness of loneliness. Even the magical force of a cultivator couldn't resist it unless they used their divine intent. The patriarch of Hu clan, Hu Ming, dared not neglect Ning Fan's order and rushed to the cold moon mountain in the middle of the night. When he reached the foot of the mountain, he suddenly realized that the rain in the sky had become extremely cold. Ever since he started cultivating, his physique was stronger than mortals. He rarely felt cold. Even when cultivators used ice magical techniques in fights, it was only the body that felt cold, not the heart. However, this rain made Hu Ming feel helpless and at a loss for the first time in his decades of cultivation. Loneliness was like the moonlight that blended into the rain. This feeling of loneliness was irresistible, weakening Hu Ming's tough character. He recalled the night when the Hu clan was in a difficult situation, and recalled the tragic death of his grandfather and the great elder at the hands of the giant demons in order to save him. Dead, all the seniors were dead. It seemed like Hu Ming was the only one left in this world, watching the rain and the moon alone, lonely and helpless. Tired, so tired. I'm the young master of the Hu clan, but someone planted a mental seal on me. My Hu clan used to be so strong and prosperous, but after encountering a strong enemy, it has declined to the current situation. Leaving me alone. I can't do anything alone. What's the point of living? Why don't you just die like this? He suddenly pulled out the long sword at his waist, as if he was going to commit suicide. His eyes were filled with loneliness and desolation, and even carried a trace of madness as if he was possessed. All of this was because he was unknowingly being disturbed by the divine will of rain in the rain. The moment he committed suicide, a soft reprimand came from the peak of Cold Moon Mountain. Wake up. After this sound, The rain and moonlight separated, and the feeling of loneliness also dissipated. Hu Ming held the long sword in his hand, and the tip of the sword had already pierced half an inch into the skin of his neck. When he completely woke up, he was so shocked that he was drenched in sweat. What was wrong with him just now? He almost wanted to commit suicide. This was simply absurd. No, it wasn't absurd. Someone had cast a divine ability. It wasn't an illusion technique. That divine ability was far more advanced than an illusion technique. It was something that Hu Ming had never seen before in his life. Needless to say, the person who cast the technique was Revered Ning, who was at the peak of the mountain. Revered Ning of Sinister Sparrow Sect is actually this powerful. He didn't even use magical force, but he used a strange divine ability that almost made me commit suicide. This person's cultivation base is too terrifying. What worried Hu Ming was that he might have offended Ning Fan. Otherwise, why would he almost be sentenced to death by Ning Fan before he even reached the mountain? But when he thought about it again, he was puzzled. Ning Fan had planted a mental seal on himself. If Ning Fan wanted to kill him, he only needed to trigger his spirit sense within the range of his spirit sense to shatter his sea of consciousness. Why would he need to go through so much trouble? It seemed like Ning Fan didn't want to kill him, but he was unlucky. He happened to encounter Ning Fan practicing a magical technique and got himself involved in it. Thinking of this, Hu Ming couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. Knowing that Ning Fan didn't have the intention to kill him, he felt relieved. However, he was even more afraid of the magical technique just now. Just the shockwave of a magical technique could make a dignified, harmonious spirit expert like him sink into it and unable to extricate himself. If this divine ability were to be spread, he was afraid that Yu Country would be shocked. He didn't dare to be negligent and immediately went to the peak of the Cold Moon Mountain. Ning Fan was still skinny. Even the body refining technique didn't make his physique much stronger. His complexion was extremely pale, but his qi was heavy and terrifying. Hu Ming immediately withdrew his thoughts and said solemnly, "The patriarch of Hu clan, Hu Ming, greets Revered Ning. Tell me the truth about what happened in Purple Light Sect. I will seek justice for your clan." The rain intent flashed in Ning Fan's eyes. The rain stopped. The next time, it wouldn't be rain anymore, but blood rain. The sect master of Purple Light Sect, Dao Guang, had been in seclusion ever since the battle with Yu Country. That battle was too terrifying. He couldn't resist the Black Corpse at all. One of his arms was torn off by the Black Corpse, causing his cultivation base to drop to early Gold Core realm. Moreover, the injuries he suffered weren't something that could be healed in a few decades. Heavenly Dao Sect entered through the entrance of the realm that was guarded by Purple Light Sect. He, the sect master of Purple Light Sect, had failed in his duty. As for his action of causing the destruction of several cultivation clans in order to escape, many righteous sects despised him. In short, he was unlucky during this period of time. When he was in seclusion, there was a rumor that the great elder of Purple Light Sect, Qingguang, was secretly trying to rope in other factions, as if he had the intention to replace Dao Guang. In the entire Purple Light Sect, 7 out of 10 people had already joined Qingguang's faction. Once Dao Guang came out of seclusion, they would seize his position as the sect master. Regarding this, Dao Guang had no choice but to admit defeat. He faintly felt that his position as the sect master was coming to an end. Recently, Qingguang's faction even coerced several small cultivation clans to join Purple Light Sect. Their purpose was to strengthen their faction and prepare for seizing the position of the sect master. The incident of Hu clan was Qingguang's doing. The old ancestor of Hu clan used to be on good terms with the sect master, Dao Guang. Now that Dao Guang was injured and Hu clan was weakened, Qingguang naturally wanted to take revenge. His order was that if Hu clan didn't surrender, the entire clan would be regarded as evil and be killed. Outside Purple Yuan Mountain, Ning Fan stood in the sky under the moonlight. His indifferent eyes swept across Purple Light Sect beneath his feet. He asked Hu Ming about the details. He had no interest in the conflict between the factions of Purple Light Sect. He came here only to fulfill the promise he made with Hu Fengzi, the promise he made for the cultivation pill, righteous and evil, good and evil, these things have nothing to do with me. I killed people just for the kindness of having a meal. Dan Fragmentation Cauldron, fall. He patted his storage pouch and a small cauldron flew out. In the night sky, it turned into a huge black cauldron with 9 black fire dragons burning on it. These scenes were similar to what the old devil did to all pleasure sect in the past. However, this purple light sect was obviously stronger than all pleasure sect. The sect protecting Grand Formation was a mid-grade core realm formation. However, it wasn't enough to stop Ning Fan. As soon as the cauldron fell, the formation immediately let out a loud roar. After blocking for a moment, it immediately broke into pieces of halos. After the first one was broken, the second one rose. A purple light curtain swept across the sky, emitting a trace of ancient chi. The level of this formation had reached the low-grade nascent realm. This formation was set up by the founding ancestor of Purple Light Sect. Its power was extraordinary. It was called the Purple Light Formation. It was the foundation of Purple Light Sect. This formation was slightly beyond Ning Fan's expectation. It even blocked the power of the Dan Fragmentation Cauldron. The first formation was broken, and the second was raised. The entire Ziyuan mountain was in a state of panic. Countless lanterns were lit up, and many old monsters simply put on some clothes and soared into the sky. In the purple light, when the old monsters saw that the one who attacked the formation was the famous revered Ning of Sinister Sparrow Sect, they immediately kept quiet out of fear. Only the great elder, Qing Guang, had a trace of calmness. In the purple light formation, he cupped his fists at Ning Fan and said indifferently, "I don't know why revered Ning of Sinister Sparrow Sect has come to my purple light sect. Why did he destroy the grand formation of my sect? Could it be that he has a grudge against the sect master? If so, I am very willing to seek justice for revered Ning." Qing Guang had heard of Ning Fan's name before, but he didn't know that Ning Fan was Black Devil Ning. The incarnation of the black-robed man that appeared at the last moment had made many old monsters misunderstand Ning Fan. Although he had heard of Ning Fan's name, he was still under the protection of the Purple Light Formation. Qing Guang ordered his disciples to replenish the immortal jades in the formation while he was probing Ning Fan's background. He had never seen Ning Fan before. If Ning Fan had a grudge against Purple Light Sect, then he must have a grudge against the sect master, Dao Guang. After all, Dao Guang was too unkind. In order to escape, he had harmed the lives of tens of thousands of cultivators. Many cultivators who were lucky enough to escape from the calamity came to Purple Light Sect after the incident. However, Ning Fan was the first one who killed Dao Guang by smashing the cauldron. And this Ning Fan must have a grudge against Dao Guang. I heard that Ning Fan is extremely lustful. He cultivates a dual cultivation technique. Perhaps he has an affair with the daughter of a patriarch of a cultivation clan. Coincidentally, the daughter was implicated by Dao Guang in this battle and died a violent death. It's possible. Qing Guang seemed to be convinced of something. His hostility towards Ning Fan had decreased a little. If Ning Fan really came to seek revenge against Dao Guang, it would be the best news for Qing Guang. He would take advantage of the situation and let Ning Fan deal with Dao Guang in the name of Purple Light Sect. And it would be best if Ning Fan could kill Dao Guang. Then he would naturally become the sect master of Purple Light Sect. He wouldn't even have a trace of the bad reputation of seizing the throne. This Ning Fan really came at the right time. Humph, old man Dao Guang, your position as the sect master has come to an end. It's time for someone else to replace you. Someone asks sect master Dao Guang to come out of seclusion to apologize for his crime. Qing Guang pretended to be righteous and ordered a few deacon disciples to summon Dao Guang. However, there was no need for anyone to summon him. Dao Guang had already walked out of the stone chamber with a bitter expression while holding his broken arm. He knew Ning Fan's reputation very well. He had witnessed Ning Fan's terrifying means in the battle between Yu and Mo. Ning Fan had defeated Old Devil Purple Een. Moreover, Ning Fan didn't seem to be in a disadvantageous position when he fought against the Black Corpse. Even if he was at his peak state, he wouldn't be able to escape from Ning Fan's pursuit, let alone now that he was injured. Fine. Qing Guang, you win. Dao Guang sighed and closed his eyes, looking like he was waiting for death. Qing Guang, on the other hand, was secretly delighted. Once Dao Guang died, Purple Light Sect would belong to him alone. However, his beautiful dream was destined to be a failure. Ning Fan's faint voice came from the sky. I'm not here to kill Dao Guang. I'm here to kill you, Qing Guang. Today, I'm here to avenge Hu Clan. Those who are not convinced can stop me. His words made Dao Guang's facial expression change. He was caught unprepared. As for Qing Guang, his smile froze awkwardly. He looked out of the formation coldly. Ning Fan, you might have powerful means, but don't think that you alone can fight against my Purple Light Sect. I advise you not to get involved in this mess. Otherwise, even your old ancestor, Black Devil Ning, won't be able to save you. My Purple Light Sect is protected by a nascent realm mid-grade grand formation. Before Qing Guang could finish his words, Ning Fan had already smashed his cauldron. This cauldron brought along 9 fire dragons. Each of the fire dragons formed a fire dragon vortex, completing the 4th revolution of the dragon vortex. Ning Fan's eyes turned cold. The purple light grand formation was immediately broken into countless pieces. Qing Guang was completely dumbfounded. The nascent realm grand formation that made him feel safe was so fragile. 1 cauldron, the purple light grand formation, was broken. 2 cauldrons, the mountain gate was trampled. After 3 cauldrons, the whole purple Yuan mountain was flattened and half of it collapsed with rocks falling down. As soon as the formation light was broken, Ning Fan's sword sense swept across. Qing Guang and the few harmonious spirit elders who were guarding in front of him were immediately enveloped by the sword sense. The slightly black sword sense went into their sea of consciousness and minced them. Qing Guang's dream of becoming the sect master of Purple Light Sect was shattered. His clan was exterminated. Ning Fan's gaze swept across Purple Yuan Mountain. The whole territory of Purple Light Sect was in ruins. Except for Qing Guang and a few other experts, the other disciples were still alive. Each of the disciples of Purple Light Sect, including Qing Guang's trusted followers, didn't dare to look at Ning Fan's eyes. They immediately lowered their heads in fear of being treated as Qing Guang's accomplice and killed. Terrifying, too terrifying. The nascent realm grand formation Purple Light grand formation was broken just like that. The dignified early gold core great elder Qing Guang was killed in such a strange way in just a single encounter. Revered Ning of Sinister's Sparrow Sect. Sure enough, his reputation was well-deserved. He raised his hand and kept the Dan fragmentation cauldron. Then, he descended and took away everyone's storage pouch. Ning Fan's gaze swept across Dao Guang and smiled faintly. The killing intent that flashed in his eyes just now had vanished. Killing Qing Guang seems to have done you a favor? Yes, yes. This is just a small token of my appreciation. I hope revered Ning won't refuse it. Dao Guang immediately took advantage of the situation. He untied the storage pouch on his waist and took out a few important pills and magical treasures. The rest of the things were given to Ning Fan. Among them, there were at least 30,000 immortal jades, but Dao Guang gave them to Ning Fan without hesitation. Although he was glad that Qing Guang was dead, he was also afraid that the smiling Ning Fan would kill him if he was dissatisfied. This person was standing up for Hu Clan. Dao Guang and Hu Clan had some friendship, but that friendship couldn't give Dao Guang a sense of security. So, it was better to spend money to save his life. I only want immortal jades. Other things are useless to me. Dao Guang, I won't ask about the grudge between you and Qing Guang. But after I leave, you will take care of Hu Clan. When I return to Yu country, if Hu Clan is in trouble, do you know the consequences? Rest assured, revered Ning. As long as I, Dao Guang, am alive, Hu Clan will not suffer any harm. Dao Guang vowed solemnly. Very well. As for the rest, you can settle it yourself. The rest was naturally dealing with the traitors in the sect. Even without Ning Fan's reminder, Dao Guang would have done it. He didn't become the sect master for hundreds of years for nothing. Ning Fan didn't look at Purple Light Sect again. With a flash, he turned and left. In this way, the karma of Hu Clan was settled. After Ning Fan left, each of the cultivators of purple light heaved a sigh of relief. But then all of them had two different expressions. One was the cultivators who were loyal to Dao Guang. Naturally, each of them was overjoyed. Qin Guang's death was the best news for them. As for the majority of them, they had pledged their loyalty to Qin Guang. At this moment, they looked as if their parents had died. The crime of betraying Dao Guang wouldn't be light. Dao Guang's eyes turned cold. He immediately issued an order to punish these traitors. However, all these had nothing to do with Ning Fan. He had no interest in the internal strife of Purple Light sect. He didn't hesitate to kill even though he had no grudge against Qin Guang. It had nothing to do with good or evil, right or wrong. He just wanted to keep his promise. A promise to others was worth 1,000 gold blades. In this way, he could eat the cultivation pill given by Hu Fengzi with a clear conscience. Gradually, the heart demon could no longer invade his heart, not even a little bit. In the night, Ning Fan passed through the dark clouds and calmed his killing intent. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.